did not even pursue that option. And then they decided to stay on maybe renegotiating in the background until this time. So it is also one of the ways of redeeming yourself from default. So if they have renegotiated and come back, so be it.
Let's look to the. You want to respond?
Yeah, just a bit. I wasn't evasive. I actually was looking at what probably you in your campaign, for instance, say you're going to grow the private sector. The laws, we have made it for ourselves. We know the spirit and letter of the law by doing application of it. There's some humane aspect. And then you were saying that, look, yeah, clearly, if they owe, and I cited an example, and the people wanted to negotiate, these negotiations, they wanted an open window for that to take place. And why did it take so long?
This is a
Listen to me.
you should be asking.
Yeah, so these are matters.
This is the question you should be
These are
asking the
matters.
parties, not us.
Listen, these are matters that must go to all. That look, we make laws, but then again, in applying it, just look at the totality of the situation and see how you balance the application of it. I understand if they are going strictly by whatever it is. There was radio stations in this country that were equally found, were known, but then you see on the set, I will not mention names, that could have also suffered the same fate. But for the fact that, well, to the best of the authorities, they were left out. So why?
Yeah,
but you see, let us not go there. The issue is this. Be fair, let us take politics out of this. These are private investments. It could be you, it could be anybody else. Look at the matters. Clearly, you could, challenges, issues may come out to the extent that you may not be able to fulfill some of it.
Let me bring in.
There must be some window of opportunity for such entities to come in and start talking.
So you would have loved a human face to the action.
Absolutely.
Nobody will apply sanctions without.
I mean,
I spoke to one person who works in one of these stations that have been restored.
We all know the laws.
60 people were working at that station when it was shut down. So 60 people lost their jobs.
So
the argument for the human face, for some people, will say yes.
Is always there. But the human face comes in when there is an attempt to remedy the situation. But somebody who is recalcitrant want to continue to flout the law. The law will not wait for the human face to come. I personally had to manage the free zone at some point in my life, and there were companies that were licensed as free zones. There were private investments, all right, and they had private people also, but there were regulations under which they could operate within the regime. And if they flouted those regulations, we always wrote to them that you, my friend, you're supposed to be filing your returns so, because it's a statutory responsibility. You are not doing it. Let me give you some 2 more weeks or months to comply.
Did they always listen to what you said?
In both cases. But in the cases where they would not, we shut them down.
You shut down some companies?
Yes, we did.
For non-compliance?
For non-compliance, because, you see, we would have given you tax holidays for reason that you are employing people and for reason that you are expected to export. And some people, probably sometimes, they would not also export. They would divert all those produce back into the mainstream economy and not comply with the requirement of a 30%, 70%
so if persuasion feels force must be applied.
Of course.
Is that what you say?
We must all respect our regulations, and we must all also make sure that our regulations work. And indeed, in the transport industry, you see the way that some people drive on the street, and they say because we are in a hurry, some people are sitting in the car, it's a trotro, they are going to work. And so we have to flout the law because for people want to get to the office early enough.
So there must be selective application of the law.
I don't have any evidence of the selectiveness of the application.
Let's draw a line.
I won't go there.
Let's draw a line.
If you have any evidence,
you will talk about
you from enforcing your right.
Let's draw a line under this. There are also arguments that if these state institutions were not staffed or headed by political appointees, the argument of political coloration would not come in, because then you'd be seeing it as a law being done without any political colors behind it.
Affiliation to state institutions, they will go without management. Because, so are we saying
The
that
civil service is supposed to be...
Are we saying that
is
those of us...
Is the civil service
Are we
political?
saying that those of us three sitting down here, we don't have political coloring?
The argument is that if the state organizations were headed by people who were not appointed directly by political authorities, it would remove the perception of bias.
Yes, but
is it a logical
in
argument?
all cases, somebody must appoint. So who is that person who is going to appoint out of a vacuum because we don't want anybody in authority? Somebody who has entrusted the responsibility of managing a whole state in his hands. You also want to close his hands and say that you cannot have power to appoint. So who would then have the power?
How does it work in countries where things work?
In countries where things work, supposedly, they work. The appointments are made by the same people who are either selected by a system within the country, probably as politicians in public office or in political office, who appoint all those other people. Go to the United States. The justices of the Supreme Court are appointed by the president, and it goes through a process.
Maybe Ghanaians need to trust their politicians more.
Yes, but the reason why we are not trusting our politicians more is that we politicians, we are blaming each other for misbehavior. So then the public will come in and throw mud at both of us. You see, but me, if I'm in public office, and if you check my record, people who have worked with me in public office, I don't know where they come from, I don't see where they come from. And even now, people come to my office now in Parliament, I don't know people who come. It doesn't matter.
All right.
I'm worried about what you do in that office, not
Indeed.
how you come.
Okay.
You understand? But
because clear.
My friend will come to my office and say, hey, he's brought people from his constituency. I go there and also say he brought people from his constituency. So we are throwing mud at ourselves.
No,
so we invite other people to throw mud.
Final point on this, we're jumping to mental health.
Yes. You see, not necessarily that we keep attacking ourselves, hence...
Is that not the case? Is it not true?
No.
Let's
draw the line. Let's draw the line.
When he argues this way,
yes.
it will mean that we are not believing ourselves that
it is true.
They also think for themselves. The
from
people we serve think for themselves. They are so independently mandate people.
No,
they analyze, they assess.
All right.
And this is what...
we invite them to think of both of us. That's all.
Okay, now I invite us to go to the next topic.
Very well.
It's headlines with my very energetic guests. You know, so you see how the things happen in Parliament, you know. It's always very, very vigorous and... most of the time very civil too, which is great.
Join us.
I need to join you,
we don't fight you.
I hear you. No, it's good. It's good natured. Good natured conversations here. MP for Asante Akim North and the Apia Kubi, and MP for South Tong. So we have a North and South thing going on here. What are your thoughts on these 133 radio stations who have been resurrected back from the dead to the world of the living? Give us your comments. 055-556.
The words are yours.
1031. Those are my words. I own them 100%. They were dead. They are now back to life. Now let's talk about something which affects all of our lives and our pockets as well. Because on the front page of today's Ghanaian Times, there's a story on mental health. So Ghana is losing $5 billion annually, which is about 7% of our gross domestic product, from mental ill health, mental disorders. And just to put it into context, malaria, the cost of to the economy from malaria is 4% of our GDP. And our mental health is presenting almost twice that, 7% of that, $5 billion every year. There was a seminar that was held a couple of days back in the capital city, and these revelations came out. So we're losing 7% of our GDP annually due to mental health disorders, translating into about $5 billion for the last year alone. Now, this was revealed by Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Caroline Emisa. She's therefore called for the issues of mental health to be given the needed attention it's required in order to reverse the trend. Big issue, but people don't like to talk about it. I'm a goodwill ambassador for Accra Psychiatric Hospital, and I have friends who say about why are you associating yourself with crazy people? You know, So mental health is actually very significant. People need to have peace of mind to do their work, no matter what work they do, and resources have not been allocated in the past. I mean, it's improving now, but in the past it hasn't been so. It's improving now, but we need more resources allocated to deal with human issues, with infrastructure issues. What role can Parliament play in this resource allocation for mental health?
I think this is a very important topic, and it has two. For me, I'll look at it from two perspectives. One is the prevention. What do we do to prevent some of these things from happening? And then the curative. And then we look at it too. In fact, when it comes to the creative, you realize that that's where you come to the infrastructure. Do we have them, the hospitals?
Yeah.
Pantine has its own challenges. Dankafo, you know them. I mean, that's the Asylum Down, which is the psychiatric hospital close to us here. You realize that they all have their peculiar challenges. The infrastructure, they're very poor. Because, for instance, you want to be able to rehabilitate even after you have applied medication and all that, and then take the people through some reform, trainings, and etc. And then you realize that they are not adequately equipped to do that. Then prevention. I mean, mental health. It's not from our homes. The social problems, the challenges we go through. You go to our constituencies, for instance, you realize that what needs to be done in terms of resource allocation, for instance, for whatever needs to be done to impact positively on the people in maybe the rural areas, are not coming. The resources, maybe common fund, let's just, for instance, this whole year, I can give you an example. There hasn't been a release of money to the assemblies for them to work with.
The whole year.
I'm telling you. So therefore, if you look at this, and then what needs to be done for the rural folks that are not being done, and then the mental torture they go through, the agony, the difficulty, on the health sector, you talk about the infrastructure, and then maybe human development aspect too, every other aspect that confronts them. Definitely the person goes will go sleepless sleepless nights without probably on empty stomach.
So the frame of mind is affected.
Every aspect of the entire human should I say his establishment to put it, is what it's problematic.
So we need more resources.
So the imbalance in the resources in terms of the allocation of it is something that government must look at.
Okay.
And then when we look at the creative aspect too, I don't know. That's where I don't know. I've heard that some releases have been going to buy medications, either they were not having, and I don't know whether those medicines could not be manufactured locally, so that you can have easy access to them. We have pharmaceutical industry that are quite strong in this country. Yes. Can't we really urge them to be able to produce the generic? So there are other aspects that needs to be looked at totally. So it's a holistic thing, and then this
preventive and curative.
Preventive and then a creative. I mean, there are challenges, and in fact, if we can take a policy as a country and say, look, let's tackle the prevention, talk more about it, release the resources, get the policies being implemented, impact well on the people. I think we'll go a long way to even prevent how much we spend on buying drugs.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in Mr. Apiakubi. I was at that seminar. Yes. Interesting statistics. The whole of the country, we have 53 psychiatrists for 30.8 million. The WHO standard, that should be over 3,000, but we have 53. Luckily, it's being made more attractive for more young psychiatrists to come in, so the number is going to go up in a short while. Local pharmaceutical companies are getting involved in the business. Even old school networks, Wesley Girls, they were able to do some good work at Ankafu and Vandals as well. So there are things happening.
So some social network, and then safety nets.
Yes, so things are happening, but a lot more is done. Don't you think, Mr.
Well, I wasn't disappointed at all with the submissions of my good friend, because you see, whatever you do, they will bring some little politics in it. But he started by identifying 2 points of intervention. Preventive, curative. I will add education and law enforcement. so that if we have a continuum
that's
of
why
that,
you're here.
yes, if we have a continuum of that, but I want to take away all the political the political invitation.
What was it? I missed it.
He said the government has not paid this what has that got to do with the subject matter?
No, it does.
If you have a very curious student, you said a question, he will import his answers that does not.
Are you accusing him of deviation?
No, I'm not. I am saying he will import an additional information that may not be relevant.
Illegal
but let me go on. I expected him to do that, so I'm not surprised.
No.
But let me go on. He started with
I'll come back. You come back.
I'll come back. Don't worry, you come back.
He started with 2 points which are valid, very relevant. Preventive and curative.
And you wanted to add 2 more.
Education on the left side of it, and law enforcement on the other side of it, to balance the equation. Now, we need to educate people more on the dangers of abuse of substances. And indeed, when we talk about mental health, the emphasis is always on the victims of the attack, not necessarily the whole chain of how it starts and how it ends.
So education.
You go to our various communities and you see young people are being attracted into abuse of substances. And indeed, because of maybe the inadequacy of supply of services in the medical services, people resort to self-medication. You see, the mental health situation is not only the abuse of the substances, but not for application of even certified drugs or pharmaceuticals. You have some ailment, you won't go to hospital for diagnosis, you will start by taking whatever medicine that somebody tells you it's good for his case. Then somehow most of these substances affect us, and incrementally we end up becoming victims of drug abuse.
So we need more education.
More education, more control. Indeed, the pharmaceuticals that come into the country, we need to also control them.
Okay, so that's where the enforcement comes in.
That's where the enforcement comes in. And how they distribute them to the various hospitals and clinics. There are certain Class A drugs that are not supposed to be sold at the counter, but they are being sold at the counter.
So enforcement needs to get the regulation.
The regulation needs to come in. So to complement it, let's look at education, let's look at preventive, let's look at curative, and then enforcement.
Okay.
So the law enforcement agencies, and I happened to be in the industry some time ago, they will come to a shop, they will find some unapproved medication. They will arrest you, take you to the police station. Then in about a matter of 1 hour, you are back. And business goes on.
So it has to change.
I'm
going to bring you back in 30 seconds. Hold on to 30 seconds.
He wants to come back and do the
We're going to keep an eye on something interesting happening in town. I'll come back and you get your 30-second bite of that.
Absolutely.
You're watching headlines on GTV Breakfast. My guests are the honorable members of Parliament for Southern and Akim North, Messrs. Woyume, Asante Akim North, it has to be right. Completely. We can't do that. Messrs. Woyume and Apiakubi are my guests, and she's not a guest, she's just like a good friend.
Yes.
Good friend, and her name is Valerie, and Valerie is keeping her eye on something with the help of Alan.
Welcome to this side again. So we are keeping an eye with Alan at Odogono. There's a pothole, we like to call it craters here, and manholes, and there you see Alan is in our shot. Alan, what can you report? Yes, you are.
Hi, good morning, Valerie, and welcome to Anya Ablekuma constituency in the Greater Accra region. This patch of town falls also under the Ghana Central Municipal Assembly. The road network you can see behind me is economically very important, especially to those of us who want to get out of Accra and in no time hit the eastern region via Insawam, and then we're on our way towards Kumasi. This road connects all the way from the main N1, which gives you an exit onto the Anya Awoshi area, and then you can connect via Pukwasi. You will hit traffic if you should connect via Pukwasi. However, this road would take you out of the Pukwasi traffic and land you straight into Insawam. It goes through Insakina, Oshuma, Oduma, and then part of Boko Boko, all in the Greater Accra region. And then you come away, and then in Insawam, you come out of Otuaplem from Kofikwe. The nature of this road is nothing to write home about. It began in 2015 and the construction stalled. What you have currently is another swimming pool in a highway in the Greater Accra region. Commuters on this part of town will tell you, just before we came on air, I interacted with a commuter who is a public transport driver. He tells me that his desire is to abandon driving on this road. But for the love of the friends he's made on this stretch of road, he comes back every morning. And what that means is every now and then he needs to get his shock absorbers replaced. You're not only dealing with commercial drivers, but also dealing with private drivers. You have similar sentiments being expressed. And it is really a very sorry and a sad state of affair. Not only is the road network really very poor, it also has no street lighting whatsoever. And so a commuter was telling me the other day that driving on this road, just some few meters, about 150 meters away from here, his shock absorber packed in, and so he could no longer continue. And while he was waiting to get towed away, he was attacked by robbers. And that has happened not just to him, but there are testimonies of robberies on this stretch of road due to the very poor nature of the road. Their plea, however, is to the MP of the Anya Ablekuma, Anya Soutum areas, as well as the Chief Executive of the GAN Central Assembly, GAN Central Municipal Assembly, to come to their aid. If it started in 2015, it can surely be continued. After all, it is the year of roads. What is the benefit of it? If the people who live along this stretch of road and those who find it economical to drive past here to get to Insawam to avoid traffic, indeed, it will mean nothing to them if this road is not fixed. From 2015 and in 2021, a commercial driver has just opted to speak to me. Let me see if you have something to say.
Traffic song nearby Egbeno. Oh, Paga Mete, Falconian contract ni 20 Egbeno, no eba neighbor fini. Esabia no fiana fine, Yerado.
Akajulo Hubanya na Egbeno.
Egbele, Kajina Covetole, Moto, Keplag Abiele, Agbamena, she will all in a kitchen walk back. She moto beer, Kemanke, Yejala Yeni Bacololi Egbe, Afua. I hear I'm a skak and be a med. Oh, one swagger security. If it tight, yeah, be a wow. Could not find out if I want Paga Mete, Falconi, Anna can be a fan, I think that be out.
Thank you very much. So you heard a commercial driver who's expressed just about exactly what I just said earlier, that they're not only the ones who suffer the robbery attacks, but also the market women who had to wake up early, get to become victims to robberies on the stretch of road, all due to the nature of the road. Back to you in the studio, Valerie.
Thank you, Alan. That was Alan who came to us from that area. I can't imagine the discomfort of having to drive on that stretch of the road in the evening when there are no street lights with that swimming pool in that middle of the road. We're going to be keeping an eye later on. We're going to join our Western Region correspondent, Maria Tunde, who's going to bring us some amazing stuff that Ghanaians are doing, guys. Before we connect to her, I'm going to hand over again to Kaf and his team on the headlines. Before that, I'm going to acknowledge our sponsor, Awake Purified Water. Remember that every time you buy a bottle of Awake Purified Water, a fraction of that goes to the Cardiothoracic Center, where it is used to pay for the bills of people who cannot afford medical care. So kudos to Dr. Srebro and the team at the Cardiothoracic Center. Also, quick acknowledgements to Shield Acrylic Paint, and then Adonko Next Level Energy Drink. And then later on my side of the couch, on the yellow couch, is sponsored by Airtel Tigo. We'll also have an amazing conversation around a contest that's geared towards peace. And in my ear now, our correspondent, Maria Tunde, is live from the Western region, and we are going to be going to her now. We are keeping an eye from the Western region, and that is Maria. What did you, today is No Bra Day. Oh, she's gone.
And I on GTV Live, and today we are coming to you from the Takoradi Technical Institute, which is located at Takoradi in the Pia Kwesiminti municipality in the Western region. Today I am here, yes, I am here to meet up with somebody, a student from the institute who has developed a prototype of something that is expected to generate electricity to power traffic light as well. The Takoradi Technical Institute was established in September 1982, and their collaborative efforts between the government of Ghana and the German government support for technical support for technical institutions, that is the GTZ. And today I am honored to be at the electronics lab of the Takoradi Technical Institute, and let's meet the brain behind this prototype. His name is Tarcisius Alphonsus Jihir. Tarcisius, can you tell us about this? What is it all about that is able to generate power to power traffic light and the street light on our streets? And this is what you expect it to do, right? How did it start? What was the assignment about?
There was a as long as I'm here.
From the GTI, like the Takoradi GTI junction. Okay.
So I was sitting in the car. This is a very long car. But the cars are projected for their but it's also the same road.
As for that, we'll blame technology. I'm going to hand over to Kaf and his gentlemen who surprisingly are discussing No Bra Day. I'm going to hand over to them. I don't know why you guys are all excited. Kaf, right?
You think MPs are not interested? They should know.
Wives and sisters.
Yes. Did you ensure strict compliance at home?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know today was the No Bra Day. But now that I know,
place a WhatsApp
I'll send a WhatsApp right now and make sure that she complies with international expectations.
So wherever she is.
But the unfortunate thing is that the ambassador for No Bra Day was herself in bra.
How do you? Your eyes are so good.
I'm too experienced.
Boss, are you complying? I mean,
in fact, I got to know on the way. In fact, my way to this place was when I got to know that.
Have you sent a message?
So, not yet. Probably immediately after here, I'll call.
Yes. Standing order.
No. It must happen.
It must happen.
It's international order.
It's international order.
Yeah, gentlemen, so I was going to say something.
Briefly, and then I'll come back to boss. I want to talk about boss before we go.
Beautiful.
Yes.
It's a quick one. I just want to tell my colleague and also the viewers that the reason why I made mention of the release of funds is
we have more
education that you mentioned, very, very critical. It's all part of prevention measure. Prevention is all encompassing. You need money to resource people to go and educate. You need money to give to the police, buy fuel to go and even apprehend people who abuse drugs.
You see, when question 4 is
talking about the realities on the ground. These are the facts. These are things that are day-to-day happening in his constituency and mine as well, wherever. So if there are, if you need to raise the issue,
because when
for government to know where they have to do theirs, so that at least
when question 4 can give you 25 marks, you don't waste time seeking
you don't, it's not an issue. The point is this. You see, you were thinking I was drawing the discussion into politics, but then there's one reality that ought to be known here. Money.
Money don't get politics.
I mean,
all right.
If you don't release the funds, how do you expect the education to take place?
Talking about money, a lot of money is disappearing because of adulterated products.
Yeah.
Today's front page, BFT, Business and Financial Times, BOST, has intercepted 9 trucks carrying adulterated products, 8 drivers on the run, but BOST is saying that the fuel safety is assured. How do we square that circle? So, BOST is the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company Limited. And the story is on page 3 of today's BFT. Another truck carrying adulterated petroleum products has been intercepted by BOST in Kumasi, at the Kumasi depot, after 8 others were also detected earlier. The adulterated product was detected during pre-discharge testing, BOST said in a statement, adding that further tests revealed that 8 more trucks had their contents adulterated, bringing the total number of trucks with adulterated contents to 9. So, if they tell us that 9 trucks have products which have been, of which the quality has been tampered, how can they also now tell us that fuel safety is assured? I'm trying to understand it. But on the other hand, it is good that BOST is working to stop these people from bringing poor quality fuel into the market, because I can imagine what will happen to my tank.
But I'm a victim as I speak to you now.
Oh,
yeah. But you will discuss it depending on the year.
Okay, so kudos to BOST, basically.
Indeed, I feel proud to talk about BOST. I'm sentimentally attached to BOST because of the chief executive, who is my classmate, Edwin.
Professor.
Edwin, Professor, good job. The economic front doing excellent. I know that this is a challenge to him in his capacity as a chief executive of the state institution, and I'm very convinced and I'm very sure that when he says that we'll deal with it, he will deal with it. Quality control has become a challenge now, so I'm sure my good friend Edwin will do well to make sure. I know the person he is a very strict disciplinarian, and I'm sure he will respond to this challenge. This is not that which will bring him down as a person, as a manager in the institution he heads. Having come to his notice, you give him 2 weeks. The reports will come back to you, because I know who he is.
What should be done to
sustain the
attack against
or to prevent future?
Yes, what should be done?
That is what I'm saying. That the way I know him, now that this has come to his attention, he will immediately deal with it and develop a strategy to ensure a sustained quality control program that will be the envy to other institutions. I'm sure you deal with it. But every now and again, when you are handling a big state institution like that, there are some recalcitrant staff who always want to undermine institutional progress to the benefit of their personal pockets. That's always there. But the good thing is that they've been able to identify the source. And this one, you don't need to do any research. You go to quality control, and you just interrogate the chain, and you find the point where the negative intervention is happening. You deal with it and keep an eye on it. There must be also a continuous auditing of the process in respect of quality control. I'm sure he will get it right. He was trained in the University of Ghana, business school.
Thank you very much.
Where I also went.
Thank you.
He will not fail. He will not fail his alma mater, and he will not fail me.
Thank you
as a classmate.
Thank you for the commercial. Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security, Nana Amwesi II, and I want to quote him. He says, "For such a long time, adulteration of fuels has been blamed on tanker drivers, but checks by authorities may reveal that fuel adulteration is also perpetrated by branded oil marketing companies managed by unscrupulous persons. This leaves consumers in dangerous situations because of trust in particular brands." This goes beyond BOST and actually goes to we the consumers, because if we are putting stuff that shouldn't be entering our tanks. In fact, you said you had an experience.
I had an experience.
What happened?
Just over the weekend. I was in somewhere in the Volta region. I just don't want to mention any. Anyway, I just went in to buy fuel. and I bought 400 Ghana cedis worth of diesel in my car. And they in about we drove from there to
in your case, it may be from the station where you bought it, but
no,
in this case,
the point is this: that's what he just mentioned. By his last sentence, that sometimes you may not know, it may not necessarily be the drivers alone, but other,
what happened? You bought 400 CDs.
400 CDs worth of diesel because the tank was almost running empty, so 400 worth. And after about 10 kilometers, within running around, and then the water separation light came on the dashboard,
meaning that the fuel was not clean.
Was not clean. When we got the filters to get that out from the filters in the engine, we thought that was all. The following morning, the car stopped.
Ooh.
As I speak to you now, the fitters called me this morning to tell me that we need to buy new injectors and buy new pumps to be able to bring that car back this morning. Now, this matter is a serious matter, and we need to really look at it. It calls not only burst into this high gear to operate further into ensuring that their quality control measures from the source where they pick up the fuel to the destination where they offload.
So it's a check.
Yes, need to be really checked, and also from intermittent check. That means also the MPA.
Yes.
That's the regulating institution to ensure that
even standard
board.
So it's a multi-sectoral, multi-approach.
So at least, because as I speak to you, I don't know how many other vehicles
were affected. Yeah. So,
this matter is a serious matter,
yes.
And all the institutions that have been mentioned should really collaborate effectively and get many more people on the ground to ensure that we don't fall victim to such. I am in it now.
You are in it, so you know who the cap fits. The shoe is on your foot, and you are feeling it. Gentlemen, it's been wonderful speaking with you. I thought I was transported to Parliament with your...
Yeah, we have to drag you.
You have to drag me, eh?
Yes, we have to drag you.
Let me consult with my...
Which is your constituency?
Well, I could be Anglo, I could be one of the whole ones. So yes.
I'm sure, but you have to wait until the one day is retiring.
I shouldn't do a coup, eh?
No, you shouldn't do a coup.
I hear you.
All the MPs in Ho are my friends.
Okay,
so why would you go and hate my
plan?
In the Ho or in the voter?
I should go to Anglo.
Well, don't go to Anglo. Yeah, you see, wait. I'm saying generally wait. One of them will soon retire.
And
then I will come and campaign
Free
with
political campaign advice from Honorable Andy Apiakubi, who represents the good people of Asante Akim North. Yes. And also on his left is the MP for the good people of Safton, the Honorable Kobla Mensa Woyoman. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Yes. I've enjoyed the conversations, and let's do this again some other time.
I remembered our Commonwealth days when we were campaigning for SRC.
Yes, indeed.
And you in Vanda City.
In the Vanda City, the great Vanda City.
Always vociferous.
Yes, indeed. We're not holding our... now, we are going to Alan, who's going to talk to us right now. I don't know whether he's a vandal, but we're talking to him. Jay, actually. Jay is at Collins Dauda. We don't change. We remain the same. Collins Dauda Road is where Jay is. I wonder why they named the road after Collins Dauda, but Jay will tell us some more. Jay, hi. Greetings, Jay.
Hi, Kafu.
Yes, sir.
So good morning, everyone, once again, and welcome. It's still hashtag GTV Breakfast. So I'm at the Bachon electoral area here around the Sprinters Road. And this place, as you were asking, is called the Collins Dauda Road because he lives around the area. So maybe later on when this road is officially commissioned, that's what it will be. So where I am presently is not just known as the Collins Dauda Road, it's the Collins Dauda Diabolo Road. Apparently, Bob Smith also lives just down the junction as well. So if you want to see Diabolo, and for those of you who are not old enough to know who Diabolo is, I recommend you find the video and find out where exactly he is. So that movie used to scare us back in the day. So we are here keeping an eye on the road network in this area. Residents have complained severally about the maneuverability on this road, and it's one of the roads where you realize if you're using, you'll be matching curses under your breath, because with every speed ramp you go on, it just makes you sad. Yes, because traveling here this morning, we realized how it won't be easy for commuters using this side. So fortunately, we have the assemblyman for the area, Joseph Waben Chumesi. He's the assemblyman for the Bachana lecture area, who is going to tell us how how he has appealed to authorities to come and fix the roads in the area. Good morning, sir. Thank you for speaking to us.
Welcome, Jay.
Yes. Okay, so thank you. So how long have you been the assemblyman for the area?
All right, thank you. First and foremost, let me also say a very good morning to your cherished listeners, viewers. This man, third time as an assemblyman for the Bachona electoral area.
Okay. Yeah. And since this is your third time, and how long has the road been like this since you started, or?
Sure, way before I became an assemblyman, it's been like this. Just that we are seeing some drains work around this place. But hitherto, there was nothing of that sort. There was no drain on this stretch of the road. But I recall during my second term as assembly member, the government started some drains work. And for no reason, the work stopped all of a sudden. And ever since, we've not seen any major work being undertaken on this particular stretch of the road.
But you are the assemblyman now. So what have you done in order to get authorities to come and fix the road? Have you appealed to the urban roads network, maybe the Tema West Municipal Assembly, the central government? What exactly have you done to get this road fixed?
Thank you very much for the question. Countless time, letters have been written. We've made argument on the floor of the assembly as to how important, how critical it is for this road to be done. Somewhere 2 years ago, I saw a project signage at the other side of the road, joining from the 18, that the road have been, a contract have been issued to one, anyways, an Israeli company or something. They are coming to do the road. 2 years now, it's still like this. We've not seen anything.
So I just want to tell viewers how important this road is for the people in your community. Where does it link to? All
right, thank you. Not only for the people living in the Bachona electoral area, even those living in the Lashibi electoral area. For instance, those living within the community 18, 19, 20. If you want to go to Accra, Test in the shopping mall, you need not to drive through the KFC road, join the main Spinters road through Tesco and go. No, there's a shortcut. When you get to the Colindada junction, you branch on your left, go through this place, you go through the Kifori police station road, you join the coastal estates, and off you go. If really we want to take out the traffic from the KFC road, by this morning, go to the KFC road and go and see what is happening there. Because everybody from 18, 19, 20 driving towards Spinters want to go through that route. That's why this place is so bad and you cannot access this road. So granted we should tar this road. I'm sure most of the commuters will use this route as not the 18 community 19 KFC road.
So we are wrapping up in like 30 seconds. Tell us, give a final appeal to authorities to come to your aid as soon as possible.
Okay, please and please again, especially to my municipal roads engineer. You know, I've been engaging you a lot on this road. The last time I met you, you made mention of a legal tussle or something on the road. Please and please again, please, I'm hoping to see some work being done by the end of the year. This road is so critical that getting it done will even take off the chunk of traffic on the Spinters road.
Thank you so much. So the assemblyman here appealing that the central government supplements their budget because they cannot fix this road on their own. So once that's done, he's appealing to the engineer as well to get it fixed as soon as possible. This has been Keep an Eye from the Collins Dauda Diabolo Road here at the Bachana lecture area. Back to you, Kaf, in the studios.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Jay. One road is called Collins Dauda and then Diabolo at the same time. I mean, this combination is just any names and our road names are just something else. What do you think? 05555561034. It's the hashtag No Bra Day edition of the breakfast show right on GTV. Still to come, conversations on mineral rights. There's an interesting conversation that I'm looking forward to on art and where do you stand as far as the LGBTQI plus conversation is going? Thelma sits down and talks with Mr. Akoto Ampao, who's a lawyer, and in the heat of this particular conversation, you want to send your questions to 055-556-1034. I'm going to pop for a quick Milo break, and I'll be back towards the end. You stay and the conversation on LGBTQI and the bill and where you stand with Mr. Akoto Ampao and Thelma is right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Live from GBC Studio 1, this is The Breakfast Show.
Oh, today he has been extra sweet, and the way he looks at me.
I have done everything by the book. It's on. Hey, but I have to get some Charlie.
Using a condom will protect you and your partner from HIV, STIs, and unplanned pregnancy. Condoms are an effective way for protection against HIV infection. Don't take risks. Use a condom every time. Always come prepared.
This advert is brought to you by Health Service.
And they call me UJ. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we just back to the next level. When you get shoulder to cry, run on my pumping, so we try to suicide. Yeah, let bygones be bygones. I guess whatever I'm gonna do, we go straight to stardom. And I'm gonna take you to the next level. Oh, baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The energy next level. But baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take you to the next level. Oh, baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't quote next level. Excessive drinking can be detrimental to health. Not recommended for persons under 18 years, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and people sensitive to caffeine. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Coming live from the capital, this is The Breakfast Show.
This debate about LGBTQI has been dominating news headlines for days, and there are those who think the more attention we throw to it, the more we bring the issue, put the issue on the media agenda. But there are two sides to every story, and for those who are pushing an anti-LGBTQI bill to Parliament, seeking legislation on what they term as proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values, and that charge led by the Honourable MP for Ningo Pram, Sam George. There is another school of thought that believes that bill should not see the light of day and it should not become law because it is undemocratic of Ghanaian society. Which group of people am I talking about? 15 renowned legal, academic and civil society activists and other professionals have also petitioned Parliament against the anti-gay bill as it's been come to be known. The group described the anti-LGBTQI plus bill as a violation of all the key fundamental freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution and wants Parliament to reject what they describe as undemocratic, which is referring to the anti-LGBTQ plus bill. But are individual freedoms limitless? So we are asking certain questions here. What's your stand? Should Parliament consider the memorandum submitted by the group and reject the anti-gay bill in its current form? Which side would you go with? In the studio at the table right now is a renowned lawyer, Lawyer Akoto Ampao, private legal practitioner, who is speaking for that group of legal, academic and civil society activists calling for Parliament to scrap that bill. Lawyer Akoto, good morning, welcome.
Morning.
The first question anyone would ask you on this matter is where you personally stand on the issue of rights, legalizing LGBTQI plus rights in Ghana. What's your personal stand?
First of all, my personal stand is the stand of the Constitution of Ghana.
Which is?
Which is that every person, not even every Ghanaian citizen, but every person is entitled to the enjoyment of the fundamental human rights guaranteed under the Constitution. So once that the person is a person, he is entitled to those rights. And our position as a group is not that there are no limitations to those rights, that those rights are absolute. Almost all the rights under the Constitution have limitations. But the limitations raise a very high bar. You must be able to demonstrate that the limitation is necessary first. And secondly, the limitation is reasonable.
So you are speaking about the group now. I'm asking what your personal position on the LGBTQI debate is.
Yeah, that's my personal position.
So your personal position is also the group's
group
position.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm saying that you must demonstrate that the restriction is necessary and reasonable for the protection of the rights of others, for the protection of public interest, public health, public safety, public morality. And mind you, public morality is different from individual or private morality.
So you think all these things have not been met in the current
they have not
proposal,
been met.
and that's why you've petitioned Parliament to scrap it?
Yes. And let us be clear, we are not advocating as a group for same-sex marriage. Many of the people who seek to rouse public discontent against us are saying that we are promoting same-sex marriage.
So you are not promoting same-sex marriage, but are you supporting...
if you read our 30-page memorandum, we do
36 pages.
Okay, we do not say anywhere that we support same-sex marriage.
But you support gay rights and practice of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and all the other alphabets.
We support any violation of their rights because they are human beings. So any violation of their rights we support. And it's important for Ghanaians to understand what we are talking about, because the case is being made that the overwhelming majority of Ghanaians do not like gays, and therefore there should be a law against them. And we are saying that, look, we are treading a very slippery road, because if the view of Ghanaians is that anything that the overwhelming majority do not like should be criminalized, then it means that the Constitution has no place. And it means that today a small minority like the LGBTQ group, have been targeted and their very existence criminalized. Tomorrow, God forbid, but it could be some small religious group that people don't like. They'll criminalize them, contrary to the Constitution. The next day, it will be other minorities, in the society. And this was what happened under Hitler. Hitler was elected through democratic means. When he started doing his repressive things, he started with the Jews. Other people, the socialists, the communists, and others said, well, Jews. So they dealt with the Jews. Then he came for the communists.
You're equating the anti-LGBTQI campaign to Nazism, right?
I'm equating the process by which, when minorities are targeted, the majority think that, oh, it has nothing to do with them. We are saying that this sectarian bill goes beyond LGBTQ people.
Even though a study conducted by a prominent civil society organization came out with findings that 90+ of Ghanaians do not want this in society, and they want the bill to go through Parliament, even though Christian organizations have come out and said they actually want this to go through, you still think it's undemocratic?
Let's first of all understand what the CDD survey showed. The CDD survey simply sought to find out Ghanaians' view on LGBTQ, and 97% of Ghanaians say they don't like it. I'm saying that you don't use that as the sole basis for passing a law.
97% should not be used as a basis for passing a law for 3% of the population.
Yes, because democracy involves both the majority rule and protection of the minority. That is a very important principle of democracy, that you do not simply say that because you are in a democratic society, everything that the majority says, even if it violates the interests of the minority, because they are in the majority, it should go. And that is why the Constitution creates a space, creates a particular space, where whether you are in the minority or you are in the majority, that space is protection.
Article 12.2 is what I presume you may be referring to as the constitutional article. Is that what your group is basing its counter bill to Parliament on, your counter memorandum to
it is our bill, our memorandum is based on Articles 12, Articles 15, Article 17, Article 18, Article 21, Article 26, Article 39, and Article 33. Those are the articles that our case is built on. And we are saying that the bill seeks to violate the freedom of expression. It seeks to violate the freedom of assembly. It seeks to violate the freedom of association. It seeks to violate the right to protection against discrimination. It seeks to violate the right to privacy. It seeks to violate the right to human dignity.
Lawyer Ampofo, what about the law that criminalizes homosexuality in itself? Because that's also something that we have to consider. In the Criminal Act, we have parts of it that forbid these practices. Yes. And so if we have the National House of Chiefs, for example, coming out to say LGBTQI is un-Ghanaian and it's taboo to our culture.
No, it's not what I said. It is inhuman. Please.
Inhuman is
a
word.
And inhuman. That's what they said. And,
yes. and they are looking at it from a Ghanaian cultural perspective. Cultural law, customary law is also law. So if under the same constitution that you're quoting, makes it a requirement for customary law to be considered, then on what basis would you say that should be disregarded in favor of the 3% who want to go ahead with the legalization of LGBTQI plus rights in Ghana?
Let's be clear about what we are saying. We are saying that, first of all, there is no customary law which criminalizes LGBT.
There isn't.
There isn't. You know, there's nothing like that. Secondly, even if there were, the Constitution trumps our customary law, just as the Constitution trumps any legislation. So everything, whether customary law or substantial legislation or subsidiary legislation, must meet the constitutional test.
If I were to ask you, Lawyer Ampao, what's the Ghanaian cultural position on LGBTQI? Culturally, what's the regular Ghanaian's position when it comes to legalizing or allowing them to operate in peace? What would be the cultural position of the ordinary Ghanaian on the street?
So, two things. LGBTQ people have been living with us for decades. That's a fact. Ghanaians have not taken an unduly aggressive hostility to them. They've tolerated their existence as human beings, even though they don't like it. It is this bill which is more or less arousing huge public sentiments of hatred and intolerance and lack of sympathy against them. That is the danger of the bill. To the extent that even those of us who are coming out to say that, look, the provisions of this bill, if passed into law, will conflict with the Constitution. We have become targets. People are swearing that God will punish us, that we will die, and so on and so on. Why do we want to have a society where we are promoting hate for our neighbor? Is that Christian? Is that Islamic?
Are you bringing the Christian, Muslim, both Christians and Muslims have come out to condemn this. In fact, the Christian clergy, the leadership of clergy among Christendom have come out in support of this bill being propagated or being led by Sam George and his friends in Parliament. And so if you're bringing the Christian-Muslim argument, then I wonder which side of that argument you're making, because the Bible clearly says do not do this. I haven't read the Quran, but I've been told that it's also against it.
But my point here is that, first of all, this is not a religious matter. That's my basic point. But I'm saying that even for those who want to push the religious agenda, Christ did not come for, if you take Christ for instance, he didn't come for the righteous, those who are already saved. He came for the sinner. So even from that perspective, there must be humility and compassion for the sinner. And our point here is that, look, for the religious groups to be pushing for this law, it's a clear admission of their failure. Because if they were focused on the work of their religion, they are more organized. They are spread all over Ghana. If you go to a village, you can find 10 different churches, or 1 or 2 mosques. They have the means of educating Ghanaians so that those values will be maintained. But they are now going to the state.
Lawyer Paul, let me share.
Finish that.
Okay.
Now they are going to the state for the state to do what they have failed to do.
Okay. That's a point well made. I just want to pick your thoughts up from home, from those of you who are watching us from across the country and beyond, and I'll just read a few of the comments to you, Lawyer Powell. The opponents of anti-LGBTQI, that's a lot of alphabet plus, are trying to cause an unnecessary disaffection for the Christian community by misrepresenting the chairman of the Conference of Catholic Bishops as saying Ghana risks of becoming a Muslim country if the bill is passed into law. They also accuse the Methodist Church of discrimination, and this mischief must stop and the records must be set straight. This is Philip from North Legon. So many of the messages coming through. Bear with me. I'll try and go through as many. Then armed robbery must not be made criminal. It's my choice to belong to armed robbery group. You didn't tell us your name. This one is saying, oh, someone sent us a picture of them not wearing a bra. Thank you for doing that. No bad day today. Hi, Thelma. There are a greater majority of Ghanaians who dislike prostitution and a small minority that like prostitution. Will our esteemed lawyer fight for the rights of this small minority? I want to know. You didn't tell us your name. Good morning, please. My name is Bright Nemo from Kumasi. My question is simple. In the establishment of the 1992 Constitution, was the majority's opinion used in formulating the position? Is your question. Good morning, my sister. Please ask him, is he married to a man or a woman? Please ask him for me. So comments and opinions expressed by people who are sending messages across our social media platforms, they represent their own comments and not that of the GBC, or it's not the position of the corporation. Good morning. I think this lawyer is ignorant about the law. If 51% of the population can choose the president of the country, why can't 97% make a decision for the 3%? And more message. Good morning, Madam Host. My name is GNT from Teshi. Please ask if he is married. And there are so many other messages on our Facebook stream, and I just want to take a few of them. Lawyer, today you brought yourself to the table. Dr. Downblown, I'm not going to read your submission because we are respectful. Even though we encourage you to share your opinions, we are respectful of other people's opinions as well. I'm Kwame Pepa from Amasaman. Amasaman, don't come for me. Let's stand against this evil practice. Felix Minta says, good morning, breakfast show. As a nation, we have more pressing issues than wasting time discussing this LGBTQI brouhaha. That's your opinion, Felix. Thank you for sending that. Mohammed Abdul Wadud, the majority have been tolerant. Ghanaians have to make space for the minority. Ghanaians are behaving as if they never knew queers have been existing in the country. Stop the hypocrisy. That's your opinion. Kwame Kwachi says, so tomorrow, if weed users decide to meet in ghetto, you know they come talk article. Oh, why? Kwame Kwachi, thank you. Ko Mensa Pillar. I stand against LGBTQI. Some of your comments I'm unable to read because they are quite unsavory and we cannot countenance them at the table. But Loyampao, you've heard some of the sentiments. Yes. You do stand by your position?
Yes, definitely. Our position is a position of principle.
And one I find interesting, 51% elect a president, 97% can't.
Can I address some of the things?
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, our group has never suggested that the Presbyterian Methodists have said something about Muslims. It has nothing to do with us, and nobody should try and suggest that it has anything to do with us. Second, armed robbery. Armed robbery.
Can you throw prostitution in there because they are both?
Yes. Armed robbery is a crime because it is an activity that violates the physical well-being of human beings and their proprietary rights. So it's a direct, and that is why, you know, the armed robber cannot say that because he's an armed robber, he has a right to rob, because his activity violates the rights of others. You see, so that is what human rights are. Human rights,
prostitution and smoking
human rights will be upheld unless it is necessary to limit them to protect the rights of other people or the public interest, public safety, and so on. And armed robbers are a threat to public safety. They are a threat to life and property. That is why it is legitimate to pass a law criminalizing it. So you can't compare armed robbery to the state of the LGBT person. Second, prostitution. Prostitution involves, when you have prostitution, you move into the space of commercial activity. And the state has every right to regulate commercial activity. That is the basis, and prostitution is also linked with crime and that kind of stuff, other crimes. So that is the basis for the state stepping in there.
But they would also argue that, well, it's their body and they want to go into that venture.
But yes, it's their body, but they are engaged in a public space of commerce, and all commercial activities are regulated by law. You know, so for instance, you can't go and set up a radio station, although you have a freedom of expression. You can't go and set up a radio station without going through the procedures. So that is why prostitution should be
should not be the basis to compare.
Yes, cannot compare.
So you're saying that,
in other words, also, if LGBT people are engaged in prostitution, you can have a law that deals with them, equality before the law. Whether it's heterosexual prostitution or homosexual prostitution, that is a different area.
So the law should not tell us what is acceptable sexual right or behavior, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying, what we are saying is the following: that the state, when I go into my bedroom and I'm with my woman, or when a woman goes into her bedroom and with his man, what goes on there?
But that's, lawyer,
it's not the business.
One argument may be,
it's not the business of the state.
So then why do we have domestic violence? Because that's between two parties.
No, domestic.
But then we have to intervene.
Two consenting. That's the thing. Oh. Because we are not saying that a homosexual can go into a room with a friend and without his consent sexually assault him. That is assault.
So long as the two people consent, yes, the law should not impose restrictions on the decision of two consenting adults.
Especially within their house. Do you know what happens among heterosexual partners or married partners in their house? Do you think that, some of them do not do other sexual activities beyond what we know as...
So if a father decides to have sex with his daughter, and if a brother decides to have sex with a sister, and they both agree that, well, I find my brother attractive, I find my father attractive, and so I want to engage in sexual relations with him, should we also not legislate that? Should we not call that improper sexual behavior?
Because there's a power relationship there.
So incest should not be a crime anymore?
No, incest is a crime because there's a power relationship. You understand? So the father and the son, there's a relationship of power between them.
Even if the son comes out to say, I liked it, I like my dad.
You see, do you know why mom? Do you know why it should not be criminal? It should be criminalized. It is because you can never be sure whether that is the case, and as a result, the law takes the view that in order to protect that space of relationship, the father or the mother cannot have a relationship with the son or the daughter.
Lawyer Powell, so your group is saying homosexuality is not alien to African culture?
Yes, it is.
You maintain strongly that it's not alien to African culture.
It is not. You see, it's a minority culture. It is not. It has never been the dominant culture in Africa. But there's a small group that behave that way. And we are saying that behavior of that small group is not a threat to society.
No one has called for any, and I haven't heard, I've heard very few people, I've actually heard a few. Very few people have said, let's kill these people or let's deny them of any of their rights and protections as the constitution that you've quoted guarantees. They're just saying this practice of yours is alien to us and we don't want it.
I'm sorry.
Is that unfair?
I'm sorry. This is not what the law is saying. The law is saying, for instance, that you cannot show sympathy for any act of the people prescribed. The law is saying that, for instance, the law, you see, there's a lot of contradiction in the bill. The bill says that if you hold yourself out as an intersex, that is a person who has in
Ghanaian law, I think we have male and female, so this intersex...
that's not true.
Okay.
Even just yesterday, I saw an interview of a lady. It's called Labene.
And I've made these arguments before.
No, please, let's deal with the matter. And she has two organs, both the penis and the vagina. She has it. So you say that if you come out under this law, if you come out and say that you are such a person, you committed an offense. Can you imagine? Okay. It says that if you come out and you say you are asexual, that is, you are not attracted, you are a man. You are not attracted to anybody sexually. That is an offense.
Someone is saying, what about those who lure young girls and boys into the act? And someone is also asking, what if your son brings a man home that's the person he wants to marry? Are you going to be accepting of it? The questions you're asking.
Let's deal with those questions, because it is important to address this matter in a logical and reasonable manner, with reason.
For the 3% of the population who...
Hold on, they ask a question. We have not said, and we are totally opposed to a man a heterosexual person, male or female, or a homosexual person preying on children. Read our memo. We are not saying that We support that. And what we are saying is that if the current law, which does defilement, is not clear enough to cover, you know, a homosexual defiling a child, we should by all means make the amendments to the Criminal Offences Act.
I'll have a final question for you,
our point has to do with two consenting adults.
So what two consenting adults decide to do in the privacy of their bedroom should not be a matter that the state should legislate, is what you're saying.
Yes.
So then my final question, my final engagement with you would be, this whole debate, LGBTQI and all the alphabets that come after, including the plus, which make the possibilities endless, it's seen widely as a very Western concept. And there are those who think that the Western side of the world are very eager to push this agenda, especially in Africa, literally shove it down people's throats. Are you being sponsored, financed, influenced by any Western power that be from whichever part of the globe to further this agenda that a lot of the people who are messaging us now say we don't want it?
This is a very crazy, excuse me to use that language, suspicion. Anybody who really knows me knows that I'm not a pimp. I don't take money for other people to carry out other people's, you know, agenda. I fight for principle. And let me make this point clear here. I do not represent the president of Ghana. I do not. I'm his lawyer, all right, but in terms of my views on public issues, I do not parrot the views of the president. There are policies that they pursue that I do not agree with. I am an independent person. I'm not like those Ghanaians who, because of money and other things, will say that, oh, my friend is a president, so everything he says I will accept. That is not how I've led my life. I do not depend on anybody to make my living. So let us be clear, much more, you know, foreign forces. I have all my life fought for the independence and sovereignty of Ghana. So it is ridiculous for people to be suggesting that we've gone and collected money in order to promote this fight.
What would your final comments be? Because all the messages I'm reading, people are still struggling to buy into this idea that you're selling, that this bill should not. So there's an anti-LGBTQIA plus bill, and you are anti that bill. So anti-LGBTQI plus bill is the position you're taking. What do you want people to take from this conversation?
Well, a couple of things. First, that we are talking about the Constitution of Ghana, and we all have the obligation to defend and protect the Constitution of Ghana. And in particular, our members of Parliament, before they can become members of Parliament, have to swear an oath of fidelity to the Constitution, that they will defend, preserve, and protect the Constitution.
So you are thinking this shouldn't even have gone to Parliament at all?
Well, it could go to Parliament, but our view is that the provisions are so wildly in conflict of the provisions of the Constitution, guaranteeing fundamental human rights, that the bill as it is should not pass. And the bill as it is cannot be amended in a way as to make it pass. If they want to address the problems, some of the legitimate problems that they have, they can simply go into the Criminal Offences Act, and where they think that the provision is not clear enough, deal with it. If they think that the Marriage Act is not clear enough as to whether homosexuals,
man and woman,
yes, whether homosexuals can marry, go and make the amendment in the Marriage Act that, you know, homosexuals cannot marry under Ghanaian law. third thing, I'm saying also
The quick one, yeah.
that 51% of Ghanaians, 50 plus, not even 51.
50 plus 1.
You only need that to
elect a president.
But when the president is elected, he cannot pass laws that will infringe anybody's right of freedom of expression, of freedom to associate, of freedom from protection against discrimination and so on. So the point here is that it is not the numbers, it is what the Constitution says.
Lawyer Pao, there's another conversation that GBC will provide a platform to be held at 9 a.m. on GBC News, and the program is Focus, and the host is George Sapo. You need to listen to those arguments as well, and then let's see how the submissions made by the Honorable Sam George, who will be on that panel, would tally or vary with the ones that you've espoused at the table. I just want to say thank you for making time for us this morning to explain your position on this anti-gay bill that you and your colleagues are espousing.
Can I have a last word?
A quick one.
You see, the bill has a crazy provision that anyone who holds himself out as a homosexual, as a transgender, has committed an offense. I'm telling you that even if somebody comes on a public stage, he says that I'm armed robber, you can't charge him for saying that. You must show that he has actually must have evidence of his having committed an offense. So this is extraordinary, that you simply say that I'm a homosexual, you have committed an offense.
Isn't that a confession, an admission of guilt?
Yeah,
well,
and I'm saying that if somebody comes to say that he's a thief, just that statement, you can't arrest him.
You need evidence. Okay, lawyer. Thank you so much. The passion with which you make your points, and I've just tried really. I hope that I've asked your questions fairly. We're just trying to understand the issues, two sides of an issue really. Should the bill go ahead, or should this memorandum espoused by lawyer Kutoa Mpao and his group of professionals also make an input, and should that memorandum of understanding, or should that memo stand when the bill gets to Parliament? A conversation that's still ongoing. I'd like to thank you, lawyer Kutoa Mpao, private legal practitioner, members of the group that is calling for this bill to be dropped in Parliament, and we thank you for your time. We hope that you've also had the opportunity to listen to another side, at least, of the argument, and feeds into the wider, broader conversation of whether Ghana is ready for an LGBTQI acceptance in any manner or form. In a few minutes, I'll be sitting with the Minerals Commission to look at all the safety issues in there. And today, we will have Mr. Hassan Al to sit with him for that with the Minerals Commission. We'll be back.
From GBC Studio 1, this is the Breakfast Show. Live from GBC Studio 1, this is the Breakfast Show. Live from GBC Studio 1, this is the Breakfast Show. Live from GBC Studio 1, this is the Breakfast Show.
From 1921 to 2021, the journey to our centenary has been amazingly worthy. Azar Group is 100 years and continues to achieve greatness.
Main brands which were in the company are Azar Tex, which is an emulsion paint, texture paints, which we were the first people to produce it in Ghana, and Azar Gloss, which is oil paint. We were the first people to produce the carpenter's glue. Now we have new products like silicone paint.
Join Azar Group celebrate 100 years and to create another brilliant 100 years together.
I am 7 years old. Beep, beep, beep.
I am 4 years old.
We are 12 years old.
started my antiretroviral.
You can live a long, productive life with antiretroviral treatment. With antiretroviral treatment, HIV-positive expectant mothers can have healthy HIV-negative babies. Go to the nearest health center, test and know your HIV status. If you are positive, ask about antiretroviral treatment. Receive help. Antiretroviral treatment is your only option for a long and fulfilling life.
It's brought to you by the Ghana AIDS Health Service.
And they call me Eugene. Ah, yeah. Well, we just back to the next level. When you need a shoulder to cry, run on my pumping, so we try our suicide. Yeah, let bygone be bygone. I didn't see what the bottom gonna do. We dey go straight to stardom. I'm gonna take you to next level. Oh, baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The energy next level. But baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll take you to next level. Baby, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't code this level. Excessive drinking can be detrimental to health. Not recommended for persons under 18 years, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and people sensitive to caffeine. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
From 1921 to 2021, the journey to our centenary has been amazingly worthy. Azar Group is 100 years and continues to achieve greatness.
Main brands for the company are Azar Tex, which is an emulsion paint, texture paints, which we were the first people to produce it in Ghana, and Azar Gloss, which is oil paint. We were the first people to produce the carpenter's glue. Now we have new products like silicone paint.
Join Azar Group celebrate 100 years and to create another brilliant 100 years together.
Look, some of you are making hostile comments on Facebook. We don't like that, I beg you. We are just adding to an intellectual discourse, okay? So in today's time with the Minerals Commission, we are going to continue our discussion on the various mineral rights and consider the equipment and machinery used for these categories. In last week's edition, we discussed the various mineral rights and procedures in acquiring the licenses as enshrined in the Minerals and Mining Act 2006, Act 703. And today we are privileged, as I said, to have Mr. Hassan Al-Hassan. He's head Mineral Titles Department of the Minerals Commission. Mr. Hassan, welcome once again.
Thank you.
And we are back here to do to look again into another aspect of the minerals industry, and it has to do with, after acquiring the licenses, the kind of equipment you need to do the work that you've asked to be given to do. And so take us through briefly, and we have some pictures, as I'm sure you would speak to, some of the equipment necessary for the stages of prospecting for minerals. So last week we mentioned reconnaissance license. So for that stage, what kind of equipment are we looking at?
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you to all viewers of Breakfast Show on GTV. Yes, talking about the reconnaissance license last week, we said it is granted for 12 months and it's supposed to do some particular work which includes airborne geophysics, geological mapping, and geochemical cell sampling. So from the pictures, if you see an aircraft with some equipment attached to it, flying over the land, this equipment on the screen is an aircraft with...
It looks like a drone, a bigger drone.
Yes, a drone, but this is an aircraft. This is a drone, yes. Trying to pick up some information on the ground. And
What kind of information
this is the information that it gives.
Okay.
You see this helicopter. Helicopters can be fitted with those equipment. They pick up these informations which are interpreted to tell us the type of rocks and structures that are on the ground.
For those of us who are seeing red, blue, green, and others, what do they mean?
Yes, this is resistivity, how do you call it, interpretation. So the red are the higher areas that show resistive rocks or resistant rocks, and the blue are the low areas, and the green and yellow are in between. So this actually help us to identify the type of rocks that are in the area. That's what geophysics, airborne geophysics. So this is done during the reconnaissance time, and from these results you're able to tell a lot about where you're actually working with respect to or regards to the rocks in the area. Then from this is actually a gold catcher. Will get there, but
so from there we go to a prospecting license.
Yeah, the prospecting license, that's where you need heavy machinery for drilling. That's when you are doing intensive exploration, trying to understand the subsurface, because nobody is in the subsurface to tell you the minerals are actually moving in this direction or moving in this direction. So you need to do a lot of drilling. What you see there is a RC drilling machine. That's reverse circulation drilling machine. It actually drills to a maximum of about 150 meters, and you take samples at 1 meter intervals to actually test for the gold. What you see now on the screen is the core drilling machine, which is also to take core samples, which helps you understand the rocks and the structures of the subsurface. These are all taken and studied or analyzed to understand what the rocks are, the type of mineralization and style of mineralization that you're actually chasing. What you see now is dump trucks. You stand by the tie and you just be somewhere
in the middle.
Yes, in the middle. They are very big. These are the mining phase. These are at the mining phase when you are constructing roads to get access to the mineral area to mine, to send to the processing plant. We'll come to the gold catcher. This is for small scale.
Okay.
But there is a processing machine. Yes, this is the processing plant where a mine sends all the mine out ore to and processed for the actual gold to be recovered. So these are some of the machineries that you actually find on the mine when you have a mining lease. So from prospecting, when you do detailed investigation and you're able to define and estimate or evaluate what you have and you think it's economically viable, that's when you take it up to the next level we call the mining lease area, where you can mine and process for the gold.
Okay. And how much land do you need to do all this? These look like heavy machinery. So what's the minimum land size you need to do this safely per the requirements?
Yeah, I was saying last week, you asked me what's the size of an acre with respect to a football field. If you say a stadium, you can't compare Accra Sports Stadium to Elwak Stadium. But then the pitches on which they play the football are the same, standard.
Yep.
So an acre is about 3/4 of the football pitch.
Okay, so not a full pitch.
Not a full pitch. An acre is just about 3/4. So when you talk about 25 acres of the land, 25 acres of the land is just about 18 of the football pitches.
The standard pitch, okay.
That's what we give to small scale miners to mine. But for large scale, if you are doing proper mining for large scale, you have to take up to about 63 square kilometers. And I was telling you a square kilometer is about 248 acres, which has about 186 football pitches fitting into 1 square kilometer.
So that is a giant size of land.
But for small scale, you are given about 18 football pitches to work on.
So depending on what type of what
mineral right that you're given,
whether it's small scale or large scale.
Small scale, the maximum size of land we can give is just 25 acres. It's about 18 3/4 of football pitches.
Okay.
But for large scale, you can take up to 63 square kilometers. And I'm telling you that a square kilometer has about 186 pitches. So it's a large area there. So that's how companies like Obuasi are sitting on a very large scale. You go to Takwa, they're all sitting in a very large space.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the equipment that are used, it's the responsibility of the person who asked for the license to ensure that they have the right equipment and that they do what they are supposed to do.
You are the investor. So you apply for the license and the government gives you the license to operate at whichever level, reconnaissance through prospecting to mining.
So is there a check on whether the equipment are up to task before the license is issued, or what happens after the issuing of the license to ensure that these equipment are the right ones and they are not causing more harm?
Yeah, when the licenses are given, we go on our normal inspections and monitoring to ensure that you are working within the confines of the law. You don't go beyond.
Okay.
If you go beyond, we need to actually bring you back to live within the confines of the law.
Last week you mentioned that at some point you have to give up part of the land that has been allocated to you, and we've just talked about the maximum and the minimum for the small scale and large scale mining. At which point do you have to do this, and why is that even necessary at all?
Yeah, when you are prospecting, you are investigating, looking out for. So you take the largest, that's 150 square kilometers, 157 square kilometers. But after 3 years, it is assumed that you've been able to, confine yourself to the areas that are actually giving you signatures and indications of mineralization. So therefore, you don't need the whole broad area. So after 3 years, it's assumed that you have confined yourself to a space that you can cut out 50% of the area that you don't need.
But can you go back to it later?
When you shed off, you need about 6 months before you, the person who shed off, can reapply for the area.
Even though originally it's part of what was assigned to you.
Immediately shed off and say you're applying for. There's a space of time, it's specified in the law. It's 6 months or 18 months.
Okay. And the person who applied for the license still owns that portion of land, because
no, he doesn't own it. It goes back to government.
But the person,
anyone can also
ahead of applying for the license, they buy the land that they want to. I think, if I remember correctly, what happens there?
They get the mineral interest to work in the area.
Okay. Yes. So once that 50% is shed off, you cannot go back there.
You can't go back there. It goes back to government. So government can decide to give to another investor. But after some number of months, I'll specify, I think 6 months, then you who shed off can reapply for the area. But immediately you shed off,
you've lost rights.
You've lost the right.
That part of
anybody can also apply for.
And there are instances, I presume, where your license could be denied. And what would those be?
Yes, for your licenses to be denied, I think it depends on a lot of factors. You need to provide some information to us at the Minerals Commission to evaluate whether we are capable of doing the work. So the information as we require, if you don't give us all the information, is one thing to tell you we can give you the license. And when you present to us statements that are false and misleading, it's another point to deny you. Then if failure for you to give us the right information, if we are correcting your errors, bring this, bring that, and you continue to bring us fake things that are not what is expected, we deny you. Then maybe the area you are applying for is encumbered. That one too, we can't give it to you. It has to be denied. And last but not least, you cannot work in forest reserves. And there's places we call hydrogeologically sensitive areas. That is areas that have water bodies that humans actually depend on.
Mr. Hassan, you've brought yourself. You can't work in forest reserves, and we can't work near water bodies. So why are we seeing what we're seeing? We are being told that our forests are depleting at an alarming rate, faster than at any other time in history. And our rivers tell their own story that these things are happening. So is the Minerals Commission asleep?
We are not asleep. I can tell you there is a mine, Newmont is working in a forest reserve. Very well regulated. Chirani is working in a forest reserve, very well regulated. Do you hear anything? So therefore it tells you that there are people working in the forest reserves without the requisite licenses. So therefore there is no requisite
look at some of the sites we are seeing on the screen. Is this a
no, this is a proper small-scale mining site.
Okay.
That this is their pit that they mine from. This is well regulated, and this is how the sluice board from where they take the sound. There's a trommel there. They push it into the trommel. The trommel sends it through the sluice boards there. This is a typical small-scale mining operation, which is very well regulated. So they have their ponds for the water and everything well regulated without any, problem.
So that's what you want to see. But those who do it on the blind side of the law,
we don't know them. They don't have any licenses with us. We don't know them. And a thief is in a hurry to just take what he wants and run away. So that's how can we see the devastations that you see.
Okay. Is it possible for a license acquired in one person's name to another person to be used else?
But consent of the minister. You are a third party.
Okay.
We don't know.
Yes, for that.
There's a process.
Okay. What will that entail?
If in case you are the one we give license to, and you want to give it to a third party, so you will bring us the third party's company documents, its capability technically, whether they have the technical wherewithal, financial wherewithal, and all the company profile as to what they've been doing in the past. All these papers or documents are brought to us for us to study, to understand whether the third party coming in has what it takes to do what you were doing. If it's not, we deny them. But if they have, we then recommend to the minister that a third party coming in has what it takes. So give it to him.
Right. I think we'll shelve this conversation for next week, because every Wednesday we are here in our time with the Minerals Commission. You'd like to make some final comments, so a quick one, if you may, before we wrap, Mr. Hassan.
Yes, we keep on saying illegality is an illegality. If government has not given you a license to work in an area, the commission doesn't know you, because the moment the commission gives a license, all the other government agencies come in, because with the license you need to pick an EPA permit, come back to us to pick an operating permit, and by so doing we are able to regulate your activity. But an illegal operation is an illegal operation. It doesn't have all this thing, and it's not monitored, and a thief in a hurry to pick gets to destroy what he's doing in the area. So now the government has to go looking for money to go and rehabilitate areas that have been devastated by some illegal people taking money for their own greedy, how they call it.
Then surely that should stop. That should stop. Thank you so much.
That should stop.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Hassan
Thelma.
Al Hassan is the head minister.
All right, welcome back. Our guest in the studio next to me is Professor Emerita Techua Manu. She is the former Director, Institute for African Studies, also former Director, Social Policy Development Division of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and a member of the 18 prominent personalities that submitted the memorandum to Parliament. Prof, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you very much,
Thank
and
you.
good to have you in the studio. Next to her is Samuel Natijot, Honorable Member of Parliament for Nigo Prom, and also a sponsor for the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family value bills. Good morning.
Good morning, George.
And thank you very much for joining us.
The pleasure is mine.
We'll have via Zoom His Excellency Lawyer Yukotu, former Attorney General and also former High Commissioner to Canada. When we get him on Zoom, we'll also put him on. But we're going to start right here in the studio with Prof. and Honorable. Once again, good morning.
Good morning.
Was there any collaboration in terms of the colors?
It's a good day.
It's a good day. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Prof, let me start with you.
Yes.
Lots of actually gone on, and there have been various conversations about this particular bill. Are we beginning to have a common ground where both sides are going to something specific about this bill?
Thank you very much, and good morning to you and your viewers, and thank you for having me. We've had a very tumultuous couple of weeks, and I believe that the noise is beginning to die down. Noise, yes.
Why did you speak of noise?
Because of the flurry of activities, and especially since Parliament will be convening soon, that we can all focus on the issues, what is in the bill, and not what we believe or do not believe. I cannot, in terms of meeting of minds, I suppose the only agreement is that I'm sure we are all anxious to see what are in the different memos, and even more important, to be able to appear before the Parliamentary Select Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs.
And are you going to appear?
Well, they might call us, okay. I don't know. Right. To begin to look at the memos and the bill in light of the 1992 Constitution. So, as you just read, in terms of Article 1, 2 of the Constitution affirms its supremacy and how it overrides any other law that is inconsistent with it. So the issues for us are not about numbers, but about whether the Constitution permits something. And it's a fundamental issue, that it's not about whether you can marshal 10 million people into the streets, whatever. It is about what the Constitution permits. And if you look at our Constitution, the framers of the Constitution, I mean, we've had reason in the last few years to talk about. We've had a Constitutional Review Committee whose recommendations have not been implemented, but there has been some disquiet about certain provisions of the Constitution. But when you look at the Constitution carefully, and I'm a lawyer, you see that the framers try to do a good balancing act, where there is respect for the rights of the majority as well as respect for the rights of the minority, and a very conscious attempt to not have the majority at any time oppress the rights of the minority. Now we must also understand what a constitution is.
But in this, I mean, to use the word oppress doesn't also mean that the rights of the minority is something that needs to be upheld.
Yes, upheld. Yes. So, okay, I will withdraw that. So what I mean is that, especially if you look at Article 21(4)(e), there is a specific section against that. Okay, so the Constitution sets out general principles. It generally does not deal with crime and sanctions, except the high crime and treason, and it leaves relevant laws such as the criminal code, specific laws to deal with the ills, because if you look at the Constitution, it's talking about everything.
But those specific laws pick inspiration from the Constitution.
Oh yes, everything. Okay. As I said, any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution will not fall. Okay, so as you have said, Chapter 5 sets out the fundamental human rights and freedoms of everybody, all Ghanaians, and indeed all the people who live in Ghana, whether they are Ghanaians or not. So, and it's irrespective of race, place of origin, political opinion, religion, gender, color, etc. And it is an individual entitlement. Okay, sets out the protection of the right to life, to personal liberty, the respect for the human dignity, equality and freedom from discrimination, protection of privacy of home and other property, the right to a fair trial, protection from deprivation of property, etc. And then in Article 21, it goes into the fundamental freedoms. The freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of thought, conscience, and belief, the freedom to practice any religion, the freedom of assembly, including taking part in processions and demonstrations, the freedom of association, including the right to form or join trade unions, the freedom of information subject to law, the freedom of movement. And as I said, so you find
so the main argument for you and the rest of the 17 is based on the Constitution.
Very much so. Very much so.
Not based on the practice of homosexuality or any of these practices. But
it is based on the dignity and inviolability of every person and the rights that are guaranteed them in the Constitution. And let me say, yes,
quickly,
the Constitution does place limitations on rights subject to the freedom of others and the public interest. And in Article 21(4), the Constitution sets a very high bar. There must be a compelling reasons in the public interest, and it should be proportionate, okay? So where it is by order of a court, where it's in the interest of defense, public safety, public health, running of essential services, etc. And it is interesting that it is only when we get to the media in Article 164 that we find a limitation on rights of freedoms of media in the interest of national security, public order, public morality, and the defense of the reputation of others. But Article 165 quickly then says that the restrictions in Article 167 are not to be taken to limit the enjoyment of all the fundamental rights and freedoms guaranteed in Chapter 5. So it's interesting, you know, and the Constitution is very explicit because in other parts it could have said those things, but it chose to do that, you know. So let me just say that quickly, if there is a law that seeks to interfere with a right, it must be specifically justified in certain legitimate public interest grounds, and it must be shown to be reasonably required or necessary for realizing the legitimate public goals that provide the grounds for the bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable, my initial question to her, whether gradually we are just coming to that conclusion where there was understanding.
Well, very good morning to you and Prof and to our viewers. We have always held a position that we have a bill, we have a duty to perform. Our duty to perform is to protect the Constitution and protect the citizenry of this republic. And our bill does just that. Our bill is in absolute conformity with the Constitution. The processes for a private member's bill are such that if the bill was in contravention of the Constitution, it wouldn't have even gotten the warrant from the Speaker to be gazetted. And
but does it take into account the content of the bill?
Definitely, that's the point I'm making. After we submitted the bill to the Speaker, it took almost a month before we got our warrant of gazette, the warrant to go for gazette, because he referred it to the legal unit of Parliament to ensure that it met all the requirements of the Constitution, Article 108 for private members' bill and all of that, you know. And there was a legal opinion that was given to the Speaker, which the Speaker himself, and don't forget the Speaker is a lawyer of many years standing himself, you know, and so after he looked at his legal opinion and looked at it himself, he was confident in the fact that it met all the requirements and was in conformity with the Constitution. Now, I've read the memo by Prof and her colleagues in academia, and it's part of our processes. I mean, our processes welcome memoranda. In fact, if we had two options, we could have taken this under a certificate of urgency, where we could have laid a bill in the morning and by evening we would have passed it. You could go to court.
Let's have him finish up. Don't worry.
You could go to court and argue your way out, but Parliament would have passed the bill anyway. You get it? Or we could go through the full process, which is what we've opted to do, simply because we have nothing to hide, and simply because we are convinced in the quality of work that's been done. And so it went through a first reading, and Parliament opened up for memos. We've received 128 memos, which the committee is going to review. There will be a stakeholders meeting where some of the sponsors of memos before the committee will be invited to come and make oral presentations before the committee. We would also be present. Let's be minded about one thing. Even when the government itself presents a bill to Parliament, Parliament makes amendments to it. And so as sponsors of the bill, we are minded from the onset that the text of the bill will not necessarily be the same as it was submitted to Parliament. However, amendments to bills are to make them stronger. Amendments to bills do not affect the object of a bill, because every bill has a purpose, it has an object.
Yes.
And so when amendments are taken on board, those amendments serve the purpose and object of the bill.
So the amendment does not actually matter whether it's an addition or a subtraction.
So long as it serves the object of the bill, it will be considered favorably.
Okay.
It will be debated and considered favorably.
And there will not be an instance where something will be taken out of the bill that in a way doesn't stand the object of the bill.
If what is being taken out in the view of Parliament after the debates is argued positively to show that if it remains in the bill would distract or subtract from the achievement of the object of the bill, it will be taken out. Now, let's be clear on one thing. And I mean, Prof has gone on to speak about the Constitution, and I've heard many of her colleagues speak about the Constitution and rights and all of that. I'm happy she herself pointed to the fact that rights are not absolute. You get it? And goes on to make arguments under Chapter 5, Article 12, the protections and all of that. It speaks about the inviolability of rights in Article 15 and 21, 4, 5 and all of that. That's fair and square. But you see, I keep asking one question to our learned professors and members of the academia. Can they point to you what provision of the 1992 Constitution, and I've seen you have a copy of the Constitution, you can share with Prof if she doesn't have a copy here. What portion, no, I want for her to read.
Okay.
What portion of the Constitution confers rights, homosexual rights or gay rights, as human rights on anybody? Because let's read the Constitution. Let's read the articles that she speaks about and that they cite and that they quote as giving rights. When you read 12, which talks about protections of fundamental rights and says that rights shall not be taken away from anybody on the basis, and even goes to discrimination. I think the discrimination bit is where it talks about discrimination, it is clear. It gives the basis under which you cannot discriminate against a person. Sexual preference is not one of them. Sexual preference is not one of those rights. What it says, it gives you race, ethnicity, religion, gender. It says gender, it doesn't say sexual preference. Homosexuality is not gender. Homosexuality is a sexual preference. So I will be glad and I will be educated if Prof on this show can point out to you a specific provision of the 1992 Constitution that provides for sexual preferences as a human right. In fact, maybe I would need to draw the attention of Prof and her colleagues to a ruling of the European Court of Justice. The European Court of Justice is the highest court in the EU. It has ruled that homosexuality is not a human right. The European Court of Justice has ruled that it is not a human right. So on what basis? You see, the entire memo and the entire argument has been that it's the violation of a human right. If it is not a human right, how are you violating it? You are violating something that doesn't exist. Now let us also be minded, and I'm hoping that Prof and colleagues have averted their mind to Article 39 of the Constitution.
Yeah. Yes, we have.
Very well. Article 39 of the Constitution, and that's why I say that
about the cultural objectives.
and that's why I say that our bill deals specifically with the Constitution, or is in consonance with the Constitution. 39(1) says, subject to clause 2 of this article, the state shall take steps to encourage the integration of appropriate customary values. And I've heard them ask, what are Ghanaian values? If we did not know what, or if we had no definition for Ghanaian values, which are our customary values, the Constitution, which they seek to come under, would not have mentioned customary values. The Constitution takes into cognizance that we have Ghanaian family values, which are customary values. It says, the state shall take steps to encourage the integration of appropriate customary values into the fabric of national life through formal and informal education and the conscious introduction of cultural dimensions to relevant aspects of national planning. This same Constitution recognizes the National House of Chiefs as the custodian of Ghanaian customary values. The National House of Chiefs has spoken explicitly on what Ghanaian customary values are relative to homosexuality. It does not find expression in our customary values.
Earlier you mentioned that you talked about the European Court that says that issues concerning homosexuality is not a human right issue. And you touched on the whole aspect of human rights, which Prof and her other colleagues are talking about. Can there be a distinction between the being as a human being and the act that the being is involved in? Can there be a distinction between the two?
Well, when you say can there be a distinction, yes, there's a human being and there's an act, but it takes a human being to commit the act. In court, to determine criminality, it's not just about the act, it is also the intent. There's the actus reus and the mens rea. Okay, and so when the individual is engaged in an act that is deemed illegal, that is where, and it is done with the intent to commit the act, that is where you can find the person for criminal, hold the person liable criminally. And so for me, our bill simply focuses on protecting Ghanaian family values and prescribing activities of individuals that are inimical to our customary values, inimical to the health. And you see, when Prof cited some of the constitutional provisions, including the media freedoms and all of that, and I hope that we have the time to explore clauses 11 and 12 of our bill, which deals with media, the clamping, what they claim is a clampdown on media freedoms. The Constitution is clear. There are bases for which you can curtail rights, even if those rights exist. So there are two layers to this argument. First and foremost, the rights don't exist. Like I said, I'll be grateful, very grateful, if Prof can point us to the way I have read 39, which gives us the basis. If she can read to you what portion of the Constitution confers a right on the basis of sexual preference, I'll be glad and I'll be educated. Secondly, if she's able to do that, that then establishes a certain fundamental human right existing in our Constitution. If she doesn't do that, then this whole conversation is dead on arrival. But if she does, then we then go to what the Constitution places as the frameworks and the boundaries for the enjoyment of rights: public health, public safety, public morality, and subject it to whatever rights she would determine for us to this three-pronged test and see if it will pass.
To my earlier question, when it comes to issues about fundamental human rights, is it based on the fact that an individual is concerned as a human being, or is based on the fact that that human being is involved in certain acts? I just want
the rights are conferred on human beings. The rights are not conferred on acts. The right is conferred on a human being first. So the right to life is a right conferred on the human being, not on life. It is on the human being. Okay. So that's what I'm saying, that if you say there is a certain right or you say that this bill will discriminate against persons on the basis of their preference, show me where in the Constitution you ground that argument in.
Okay.
The right you say you enjoy, the Constitution is explicit in mentioning the rights that we enjoy or that are conferred on you. The rights are not in a vacuum. The rights are specific. So those rights are stated in the Constitution. Show me those rights. And when it comes to the discrimination, also show us the basis for which sexual preference is a discrimination in the Constitution.
Okay, I thought that we have His Excellency Aiko to actually via Zoom. I will go to him shortly. Let me move to Prof here. Prof, he's raised some issues and asked a question whether there's any aspects of the Constitution that gives the right to...
And I like the question that you asked. You see, I started by saying that the Constitution sets out general principles. But it is very clear on these fundamental freedoms and rights of people, which attach to people because they are human beings, not because of their sexual preference. And I think that, you know, we are heterosexual, but it's not like everything that we do is judged. It's as if every minute of the day you're thinking about sex, you're thinking about what you are going to do. So the Constitution grants that protection to everybody, including non-Ghanaians in Ghana, irrespective of their sexual orientation. Now, let me, you know, this issue of how the state regulates sexual relations, it's not a new thing at all.
Just to clarify, in addressing his question, the Constitution doesn't give such provision.
No, but it is not true. The Constitution does not go into, you see, this is the 1992 Constitution.
Exactly.
It has set out those things, and that this is the protection. It doesn't talk about heterosexuals, it doesn't talk about homosexuals, it talks about people. And that is what we want the debate to focus on. The fact that lesbian, gay people, they are Ghanaians and they are persons. That is the fundamental thing.
Not because they are gays.
Not because they are gays or lesbians, but they are human beings.
These persons are involved in such...
No, they may, well, in the bill that is before Parliament, they talk about somebody who is asexual, who does not even have any kind of desire. It doesn't matter. That person is also targeted. Okay, in the definitions, in the interpretation, they go about it. But let me say that.
Can I respectfully just ask asexual have been targeted in the bill? How?
Let me.
That's a specific reference to the bill. In what way have they been targeted?
I didn't interrupt you. Let me finish. When it comes to your point, you do that. So what I'm saying is that when
can you clarify the aspect of the asexual? So
you have a copy of the bill of the promotion of the
yes.
So you can read it. So it says that,
just go on. I'll look for that.
Okay. So we are talking about a situation where the ways in which
just a quick one. Asexual means an individual who generally does not have sexual desire or attraction to any group of persons, but does not include a celibate.
Yes. So why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? Why should an asexual person even be mentioned? Somebody who does not have sexual desire. What is the problem with that? But let me go on. So when we are talking about sex, because a lot is being made about sexual relations, so what is the state interest in sex? Because it is recognized that sex is a private matter. But sex may involve abuse, exploitation, use of force. So generally, there are three things that the state is interested in.
Yes.
Does somebody have capacity? Have they given consent? Is the act done in private? If you can establish those things, then it is okay. That is why almost everywhere rape is criminalized, because there is no consent. Defilement is also criminalized. Incest or bestiality is criminalized. Okay, and then because sex is recognized as intimately private, if you come and have it in public, then you violate the decency rule. Okay, beyond this, sex, there is very little public interest justification for criminalizing sex. If you have consenting adults and they are doing something in private, It is not the business of anybody. Now, sex is different from marriage. Marriage is a public institution, and it is regulated. Sex is not. Okay? That is why adultery is not. It's a matter of morality.
It's morality.
It's not, however much we may frown against it, it is not criminalized. The state has not.
Exactly.
And premarital sex beyond minors is also not criminalized. And we are saying that this bill is a massive intrusion into people's lives. Okay? So we are saying also that same sex is not equal to same marriage because of what I've said. The sex is a private affair, and marriage is a public institution. So because of that, you can deny people from getting married because you can come up with what it violates. But you cannot tell two people what they can or cannot do in private. Okay? So, and I insist that nobody is saying that if you go into the Constitution, you will find any reference to a homosexual in the same way that you will not find reference to a heterosexual.
What happens, the explanation you've given, what happens to...
No, sorry. I want to come to a point because one of the confusions that comes up is the issue of prostitution. Okay? Prostitution by its very nature is a commercial transaction, and the state has a legitimate interest in regulating it. Okay? Are they paying taxes? Often, and then even the issue of consent sometimes. Are people really doing it because they are consenting? There's a lot of issues around exploitation, drugs, crime, etc., around prostitution. So that one is not applicable to private consensual sex. Okay? so no, this is the legal.
Within the conversation we are having.
So in some jurisdictions,
Prof, just hold on for me. Within the conversation we are having, and the context of what we are talking about now, if there is a custom,
I was coming to the cultural.
Under Article 39.
No, yes. Even
aspects.
Listen, Article 26 of the Constitution outlaws all cultural practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of a person. So culture is not a monolith. Okay, I also happen to be an anthropologist, by the way. But so culture is not a monolith. So you can't just wave anything. You cannot kill somebody ritually and say that your culture allows it. So Article 26 outlaws all cultural practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of the person. And it is when we get to the directive principles of state policy in Article 39 that the state is commanded in Article 39(3) to ensure that the traditional practices which are injurious to the health and well-being of the person are abolished. Abolished. That is a very strong word, not my word.
It's in the well-being of a
person are abolished. So it is about the dignity and physical and mental well-being of the individual person that is of concern to the listener. And indeed, the state is enjoined to, find a way to bring, to take steps to realize the cultural
let me go to
perspective through formal and informal education. It didn't say through law.
But the Constitution also talked about the state projecting and promoting values that are Ghanaian values.
Yes, it says appropriate customer and cultural values adopted and developed. In other words, it understands that some things may be there, but they will need to be shaped.
I'll come to Honorable just for follow up on a response to that. Let me quickly go to Zoom and join His Excellency High Priest join us on the line. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for joining us. The debate has been going on and for and against this whole bill. Where should we start looking at this from as a country itself?
Well, thank you. You're talking about the law. It means that we have to look at the memorandum because this is a new bill which is coming.
Yeah.
So the issue for me is, what does the memorandum say? What is this law targeted at? And it seems to me that it is after studying the memorandum closely and one begins to understand where the sponsors are coming from, it appears that most people are looking at this bill as something just against homosexuality, or if you like, gayism. But if you look at the term used, LGBTQ, this to me go beyond, just having sex. And therefore, we have to look at the whole gamut. What does it mean to talk about LGBTQI? What are they? And are they becoming prevalent in our society? Is anybody trying to promote these things? And are these things against our culture? I think that's where we should start from. And to me, having read the memorandum and having listened to the sponsors, I think all the arguments they are making can be found in the memorandum. That there was this occasion when a resource, LGBTQT something resource center was opened, and then you found some, European ambassadors attending, and then trying to give some, frequency to it, started talking about it. So their problem is that, what are we now dealing with? Is our culture under attack? Are we now being asked to follow these LGBTQT things? Remember that this is not the first time. I mean, Kufuor had time to say that he won't support it. Atamils had time to say that I am not going to support it. Their culture is different from our culture. Our president has also said he won't support it. It's against our culture and all that. So those who talk about constitutionalism in terms of constitutional rights of freedom, fundamental human rights, my issue is this. Do we have a situation where something has started in the West and now being imported or exported into our countries, and whether we are ready to go along with it? I mean, how can somebody say, I'm transgender? I mean, I don't care. I don't know whether I'm a male or a female. I'm a man, but I think I want to marry another man. I don't want to marry a woman. You see, once you go into the LGBT things, then you begin to see that the problem is more serious than this whole idea of just sexual orientation, if you like. Sodom and Gomorrah days, we have heard about it. The biblical times, we've heard about our own criminal law trying to 104, predicting on natural carnal knowledge and all that. Haven't we gone beyond the ordinary homosexual thing? And now I'm talking about queerism and transgenders things. All those, are we ready for it? Is that our Ghanaian culture? I think that is why we should start talking.
All right, Your Excellency,
problem.
Your initial comments and asking questions whether we've been able to answer or resolve exactly what the LGBTQ plus is all about. I mean, those things have been addressed in the bill. I mean, the definitions given to all aspects of it. And yes, you've had people in the argument that this is going against our cultural values and their concerns raised. So these questions you've asked have been provided for in terms of answers, especially by the sponsors of this bill. And the second aspect, Your Excellency, and the second aspect has got to do with whether we are prepared for such a practice in this country. Now, the sponsors also of this memoranda are also saying and talking about issues concerning rights, that these people that we are talking about have rights, and we need to protect these rights. So these are the counter arguments put up to the two sides of the debate you have raised.
Yes, the point I'm making is that, can we look at those things not only as against whether sex is the private matter between two consenting adults, transgenderism and all those other definitions that come on LGBTQ, are they also matters that we have to concern ourselves with? And if you ask me, my position is that these are new phenomena. They were not there until recently that people decide, oh, okay, now as for me, I'm transgender. I don't know whether I'm a man or a woman, and that although I'm born a man, I feel that I'm a woman, so I want to dress up like a woman. And you know, I want to visit the ladies' washroom. I don't want to go to the male washroom. These are new phenomena which have come out. They've got nothing to do with the old traditional systems of homosexuality and gayism and the rest. So to me, I'm saying that the proponents or the sponsors of the bill are drawing attention to some of these other things that are added onto the homosexual and gayism, and whether they are part of our culture, and they believe that they are not part of our culture and we should not support them. That is why I also stand.
Okay. What about the debate about rights, their rights?
You see, those rights are quite problematic, if you ask me.
Okay.
I mean, you are saying that somebody has a freedom of thought and expression, and that fellow can wake up this morning and decide that, look, my wife is giving me too much trouble, so I couldn't sleep. I've been thinking about my wife the whole day. I think I should put a stop to it by killing her. Does it mean I have a right to kill her? Because that's what my conscience tells me. And then look at, all our criminal laws. That are we not targeting specific offenses that we think ought not to be done? Somebody decides to take his own life, and we are telling you that you can commit suicide. Why? Why can't I take my own? So in all these things, there must be some limitations. That is why they keep telling you that those rights are not absolute. Okay. And so if you are doing things which keep confusing little children as to where they belong, whether they are being born male or female and the rest, I don't think we should just say it is a freedom of thought and expression. Okay. Other than that, using that freedom of thought and expression can be used as a defense to cover anything at all that anybody can do. I tell you that my conscience tells me I should go and do this, so okay. I've done it.
All right, okay. Just because of the public, I've lost some messages here on Facebook. Let me just read one or two of them, then I'll move to Honorable Sam George. I'll come to you after. Sure. This one's from Ni Okanye J. Says that the Constitution grants all persons freedom of association. What is wrong with an LGBTQ office? And I have another one to says that the international human right is not higher than each country's law and culture or even beliefs. It is known fact that every country has its own culture that governs its citizens. The 1992 Constitution outlaws rights and freedoms. These rights and freedoms seem limited according to the laws and beliefs. Check matrimonial laws. If you marry more than one, it's against the British law. Why isn't human rights issues raised there? All right, and this is coming from, that's Bolton Kweku. Another one to say is that what parents, okay, we'll leave that one. Oh, let's start off with the sexual aspect, then we'll move to other areas, yeah.
At times when you... And I mean, I say this without any malice, but at times when I listen to our members of the academia, they are quite condescending.
Condescending?
Yeah, in the way they think and the way they address us and everything, but that's fine.
Why that description anyway?
Well, you just need to follow the conversation. You'd see the condescension, but that's fine. Okay. In the condescending manner in which they address us in the bill, it exposes the paucity of attention to detail on the part of the academic.
Okay.
Prof was quick to state to you that she's a lawyer.
Yes.
And so she has legal training and background. She takes offense with the bill in interpreting asexual. The fact that asexuals, the term asexual is defined in clause 2 of the bill, which is headlined interpretation. How does that constitute a criminal offense? Now, that's why I said there's a paucity of attention to detail. Okay. And that happens when you're condescending. You don't pay attention to the details. The details here will tell you that we outline what the offenses are in clause 6 of the bill. Prohibition of LGBTQIAAP plus. Now we state all the things that are there and actually then go in 6(1)(e) to list them out. And she has a copy of the bill. She should please follow.
Hold out as lesbians.
Holds out as I, a lesbian, a gay, a transgender, a transsexual, a queer, a pansexual, an ally, a non-binary. Where in the do you see asexual?
So why is asexual in the bill?
Prof.
Why is it in the bill?
You have failed to pay attention to detail. You have gone ahead of yourself to peddle untruths and paint a picture.
So,
Teacher George,
well,
you have to withdraw that.
Oh no, but if you sat here and said we have criminalized asexuals, I have just
why is asexual in the bill?
Listen, when you look at the full spectrum of the LGBT, what, one of the A's, there are two A's. One is asexual, one is ally. If you're dealing with the spectrum, in an interpretation section, you will go ahead and do interpretations of everything. The interpretation section is not a criminal section. As a lawyer, I expect her to know that. As a professor emeritus, I expect her to know that.
If the bill is not addressing asexual, why should
it would deal with it? It deals with it subsequently in another part. Just the same issue with intersex, and I can give you the example of intersex. Again, you realize that
with asexual.
You see,
the issue.
when we went ahead to talk about the intersex. When we listed out what I just read out and you've confirmed, intersex is not listed there. We go on to talk about intersex in F, where we say anybody you'll be held guilty if you carry out, participate or provide any procedure that is intended to create a sexual category other than the sexual category of a person assigned at birth. Then we put in an exception clause, except in the case of correcting a biological anomaly, including intersex. So again, they'll tell you, why did you define intersex? Every bill has an interpretation section.
So,
and I would
which
expect
other provision touch on the asexual apart from the interpretation aspect that we talked about earlier?
In the, I've told you why we interpreted asexual. We interpreted asexual because of the spectrum.
Yes.
I'm challenging her to say that she should point out to you in our bill. She says we criminalize asexuals, people who don't have sexual feelings. And I'm saying she should point it out.
Why is that in the bill?
It is not there. That's what I'm saying to you.
Why is that mentioned in there?
Did you listen to me? I said
did listen
the
to you.
full spectrum of homosexuality.
Yes.
How they call themselves is LGBTQIAAP plus. And I'm saying to you that the AA, one stands for asexual, one stands for ally. So in our interpretation clause, what we did was to define every letter that they have ascribed to themselves. But after describing and defining everything, you then go out to then do what the object of the bill is. What is the bill criminalizing? And in those ones, and that's why I say that the academics have done a service to this country and the public by misleading the public. First, they started with the intersex. I exposed them on that. She's come on with the asexual. Again today, I have exposed them on that. That nowhere
does it criminalize.
Because and you see, every time I come in, I drop something. First time I asked you to I challenged Prof to show you where in the Constitution sexual preference is a fundamental right. Sexual preference is not a fundamental right for homosexuals or heterosexuals. It is not, because it is not a right. She could not point that out to you
in the Constitution.
In the Constitution, she couldn't. She vacillated around the issues, danced around it, but failed to point out to you. Now again, I've gone to my bill, our bill, and I'm saying to you that she should point out to you in the bill where asexuals have been criminalized. Because in her own submission, she tried to, that's where the condescension came in, ridicule that even people who do not have sexual attractions towards anything, we are criminalizing them. Now I am asking her, do the honorable thing and show us in the bill where asexuals have been criminalized. If you can't, admit on national TV that you and your colleagues have misled the country. Now, another thing we should point out here. Another thing we should point out here. She says, oh, prostitutes, it's a commercial enterprise. Are they paying taxes? And that's why the state can get involved in it.
She raised that as a form of comparison.
She raised that as a comparison. Yes, and I'm saying to you that, look, when they make that argument, again, it's laughable. Laughable because when you tell me that, because I've been doing the comparison between persons engaged in homosexuality as an illegal act and armed robbery. Then they say, oh, armed robbery is not consensual. Then I threw in the prostitution bit. Now they're telling you it's a commercial activity. Now go to the gay bars and see if it is also not a commercial activity where persons are putting themselves up and selling off sex in the gay bars that we see. Now again, dignity of the person. She raises dignity of the person. Tell me what is dignifying about fecal incontinence, which is a byproduct of homosexuality. And like Honorable Aiko too said, let's go beyond just lesbians and gays and deal with queers. What is that? Who are those? How is that a right? Transgenders. Today the person feels he's male, tomorrow he's female. How can that be a right? And as a lawyer, she knows that when you go to the court to enforce a right, those rights are always enforced within a boundary. Prof, respectfully, what is the boundary of the LGBTQIAAP plus? Because you know why I say what's the boundary? You have plus.
Which makes provision for
anything.
Yeah.
Just 3 days ago, we saw the Canadian president, Justin Trudeau, introduce two new alphabets, or even this time, 2S.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, if somebody, and rightly you said incest and bestiality have been criminalized, there are members of the public who are saying that if you think it is okay for a man to change his sex to a woman and then be able to have sex with a person of the opposite sex, it is okay for me to also carry out my attraction to my daughter or my son. Once it is also consensual. So incest, and they are coming under the plus. So that is where the danger of enforcing rights that are indeterminate.
But do we have a law against incest in Ghana?
Yes,
we do.
Yes,
there's a law against
same way you have a law against unnatural carnal knowledge, and they'll be quick to tell you unnatural carnal knowledge doesn't cover it. Well, in Banusin versus the Republic, unreported, a 2014 case, the Supreme Court of Ghana established what carnal knowledge, natural carnal knowledge is, and defined it clearly in that case. We put in our memo where it is the penetration of the vagina and the vulva by a penis. Anything other than that is illegal or is not unnatural. Now let's make a
anything other than that is illegal.
It's a natural carnal knowledge. Now quickly,
yes,
just so that Prof understands, she says the state has no business going into the private business of people. In section clause 5 of our bill, duty to report. And I've seen in their memo they say we are trying to criminalize everybody who doesn't go and report. This is what it says again, a failure to pay attention to detail. 5.1 says a person in whose presence an offense is committed. A person in whose presence an offense is committed. When any crime happens in your presence, the police always invite you for a statement, be it robbery, be it assault, be it rape. So long as you are a witness to a crime, you are a person who would assist the criminal investigation. How is this now the basis for our academics? Some academics have been told this, that I should qualify that some academics, some 18 academics, to tell the country that this is us imposing a criminal liability on every citizen.
What about her
if the thing did not happen in your presence? What responsibility do you have?
What about her argument of separating the human being from the act? Because according to her, the human being, the human being has rights as a human being before any other.
For the purposes of this conversation, yes, let me accept that the human being has rights.
Yes.
Now she should point out to you,
yes,
which part of the Constitution gives a human being, heterosexual or homosexual, gives him a right on the basis of a sexual preference. Because the act we are talking about is a sexual preference. It's a sexual act. When the Constitution bestows a right on you, it does it in a certain context. When the Constitution in Article 17 says that you should not be discriminated against, it doesn't mention sex. It says gender. And gender is male or female. The Constitution never mentions sex when it says there should be no discrimination. And when people talk about associations, and say associations, there are rights to associate. Why don't you recognize the Association of Armed Robbers? Why don't we recognize the association?
Armed robbers, I mean,
what?
We can't compare armed robbers to.
Why can't we? Is it not an illegal offense?
It's an illegal offense.
Fantastic.
There's a law against that.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Why?
Prescribes
beautiful. Why don't we have? Why don't you have an association of terrorists?
It's also against our law.
Fantastic.
There's a law against.
Why don't we have? Why don't we have an association of prostitutes?
There's a law against that.
Good. As we speak today, what does Section 104 of our Criminal Offences Act say about unnatural carnal knowledge. So why do we want to have an association of
that
persons?
law exclusively apply to LGBTQ and all?
Now I'll give you the answer to that.
Yeah.
That law was passed in 1960. That law was passed in 1960. Antecedents. She's an anthropologist. Yes. Anthropologists like to trace the antecedents of things. Yes. In 1960,
yes.
What did the world know? Was there anything like queers?
It was passed before. There was a colonial law.
Was there anything? No, we're talking about criminal offences act. That's what we have now.
There was
passed
like
Act 29 was 1960. Yeah. Section 104. That's what we're dealing with. Yeah. Was there anything like queers? Was there anything like transgenders at the time? No. And that is why the text of it at that time, what we knew as homosexuality was gayism. And that's why the text of section 104 dealt explicitly with it. Okay. That law is 61 years old. Another law that was passed 61 years ago was the business, the company's code. We changed the company's code. We changed the company's code. We changed the company's code because we realized that the way of doing business in 1960 is different from doing business today.
Exactly.
Today, if we realize that section 104, even when the police arrest lesbians, is incapable of dealing with that. What was the spirit of the law? When you read the letter of the law, you read the intentment of the framers of the law.
Okay, all right.
And so this bill is to deal with the current state of the insatiable desire of a certain group of people to appropriate all the 26 alphabets of the letters of the alphabet.
So you listen to His Excellency IQ,
precisely.
Listen to Honorable here.
Thank you very much. And I leave it to the viewers to judge who is condescending and who is uncivil and who does not tell the truth. I watched your CNN interview where you did not even know when the Equal Rights Amendment was passed in the United States. Women got the vote in the United States in 1920, not 1960. In any case, so let's go to this issue about the unanimity of this bill. Just a few days ago, the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs had expressed himself on the constitutionality of this bill. Article 108 gives private members the right to bring a bill, and some of us have supported that right. Curiously, the first bill that was sponsored under the private members bill was an amendment to the Road Traffic Act. And there is something about unborn fetuses in that act. And many people did not notice it. We are suggesting that it is that same impetus that has informed this current bill. Honorable Bejra, MP for Ho, has actually told us on City FM the genesis of this bill, where it started. I heard Honorable, I heard Honorable Sam George say that he did not go to the proper human, the World Congress of Families and the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights Conference in November 2019. These people have a playbook, and this playbook has been playing all around the world. So if this World Congress of Families, which is a right-wing U.S. organization that has been going around the world promoting bills such as this one. Now, when they promote it,
LGBTQ people also have a playbook.
No, that is fine. I'm talking about not an LGBT person. I'm telling you.
So why are you supporting it?
So, because I am a fair-minded person. And please let me finish. So there's this playbook, and in each place they come up with a cultural argument. So something that is so foreign. One of the things about everything that has been said, and I heard Honorable Aikwe to say foreign this. He even says it's like we were okay with the ordinary homosexual thing. What does it mean? There was an ordinary homosexual thing in Ghanaian society, right? Honorable Sam George, next year I'll be 70. When I was growing up, I knew Koyobe CS in Kumasi and all of those places. If you go around Accra, you will find them also. So maybe this is the ordinary homosexual thing. There was a colonial law against, in 1960 we were a republic, okay? There was a colonial law against uncarnal natural knowledge. Who was it targeted at? We have to be careful about these things. Who was it targeted at in the colonial period and in 1960? So when we don't want something, when we don't like something, we say it's foreign, it's un-Ghanaian. But Ghanaians really like foreign things. All the cars, the watches, the iPhones, everything.
But not on this.
No, wait. Because There's nothing foreign about it. There is a cultural war which has been imported into this country. Huh? And then we get this, the same people who say, oh, let's stick to Ghanaian things.
There's a cultural war that has been imported.
Cultural war.
That has been imported.
Yes, there are cultural wars that are going on in the US.
Yes.
And that right-wing advocates are spreading around the world and making it like it is our problem. It is our issue. So somebody will tell you, we know they don't, it's not same-sex marriage now, but it will happen in the future. The law does not deal with future events, okay? The law, when you pass a law, you are curing a mischief of something that is happening now. You don't dream, or maybe because they are prophesying what will happen in the future. So this business, so first of all, I'm going back to Article 108.
Yes.
So the Article 108 gives members of Parliament, the private members, a right, so long as they don't impose a charge on the public funds. If you look at all the policing functions.
But that's supposed to be determined by the Speaker.
No, but the Speaker, how does he determine it? It has to be a reasonable determination. All these arrests and report and things. And the prisons, all the people who are going to go to prison, where will they stay? Already our prisons are overcrowded. They have to be fed. This is a charge on the consolidated fund. And this is the point that the chairman of the parliamentary committee is making. Okay? Now, you could have taken it to Parliament under a certificate of urgency. You could not. You are not executive. You know? So let us be clear. Let's not obfuscate and tell lies that we could have done this, you know, etc.
Okay.
Now, please, two people spoke.
No,
give me the time.
I'm allowed to ask you questions.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
So when you say amendments to the bill, the bill can be amended in every and any way. It can be amended in any and every way. Parliament asks for memos. We are all allowed to speak.
Yes.
And Parliament itself, it's not just to make them stronger, it will be to expand anything, assuming that law passes. And we are suggesting that that law does not deserve to pass. Okay? So this business about the EU Court of Justice, when it suits the proponents of the bill, they can cite things from everywhere. It's not foreign. And that is one of the things, as a researcher, I was appalled. There was no evidence. There are insinuations. There is no evidence from work done in Ghana to support anything in the bill. When they try...
There's no evidence of
No, there's no evidence. All this conversion theory, it is therapy. It is dubious. It has been condemned by the American Medical Association, the American Association of Psychiatry, the American Association of Pediatrics, the American Association of Counselors. In Ghana, it's like it has finished raining, and we are bringing our buckets to come and take some. Okay? So just in France, 2 days ago, they actually outlawed this conversion therapy thing. So part of my thing, and which led me to an attack on me by an MP, that I had said that we live in a country where ordinary malaria kills people. We haven't finished solving those problems, and we are pretending that we can deal with people's sexual orientation. It's a joke, and I will insist. It's not because we don't have a malaria control program. I'm saying that people still die from communicable and non-communicable diseases, and that is what we should really focus on. Sin is the purview of the church, and crime is the purview of the state. And in fact, all the mobilization of our religious leaders suggests that they haven't done their work properly. All the morality issues that they cannot deal with, they are now asking the state to come and deal with it.
Do you consider research organized by institution as an evidence to certain things happening in society?
Oh yes, I think that if I want something to be passed based on Ghanaian law, Ghanaian culture, etc., I would use evidence here. So
if you acknowledge that, what do you make of the CDD?
No, precisely. I'm coming to the CDD research. The CDD research is being misused. Misused.
How?
The CDD research showed that 97% of Ghanaians are so intolerant, and that Ghana comes on top of 23 African countries of being most intolerant. This is not something to celebrate. And in fact,
the contents of an evidence which there was no evidence.
But that is not that was not the purpose of the CDD report. The CDD, by the way, is not a right-wing organization, Mr. Sam George. But the point is that The CDD report was looking at a range of attitudes on ethnicity, on political preferences, etc. So it was a range.
Yes.
And what they found was this. Now the point is that abhorrence, the fact that the majority of people, and in fact the UN special rapporteur, when they came to Ghana, they were saying that this was evidence that the state should actually protect that community against this unbridled hostility and intolerance. Now you empower them by giving them a law to go after these people? No. You see, that is why I'm saying that you have to be careful in interpreting it. The other evidence that I have heard the other evidence that I've heard Mr. Sam George use is the Ghana AIDS Commission research telling us that 18.1% of men who have sex with men are HIV positive. The other 82%, they are heterosexuals. So what is this focus on the men having sex with men? So again, we have to be careful how we use it. And the money that is spent on antiretrovirals, most of it which doesn't come from Ghana anyway, but I would advise that the leakages that the Auditor General's report and all the Parliamentary Accounts Committee reports, that as an MP, this is where he should focus his energies. Okay?
Right. Let me
no, please, let me just finish.
I think I've given you enough time to do that.
to listen to two people.
I mean, I'm giving you enough time.
No, but I just want to say something to Mr. Ikweotu. Okay. He's a lawyer.
Yes.
And a former Attorney General. Yes. And I expect him to base his argument on law and the Constitution.
Hasn't he done that?
No, he has not.
Why hasn't he done that?
He has based his arguments on culture and all this.
But he talked about rights. He talked about rights.
Only to
and cited the example of suicide.
Only to dismiss them. So, if the law on suicide is inadequate, throw it out, reform it, okay? If Section 104...
But why is it even criminalized? I mean,
precisely, I don't happen to agree with it. But what I'm saying is that anything, this was done in 1960, it's not good enough. Strengthen it. Don't bring a punitive law in its stead.
Okay, let me move to His Excellency Ayikoji. I just have about 15 more minutes for us to wrap up. And what should be the way forward for all the stakeholders here, especially Parliament, that's going to determine this at the end of the day? And if you'd like to respond to what Prof said, I mean, I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that. Then we can move to the substantive question.
Well, I think Sam George, I would advise Sam George to tone down on his language, because once you say somebody is lying, you attack the person's integrity, and therefore the person may have to react, and then it leads to all kinds of comments being made here and there. So please, let's tone down on the personal parts and look at the issues. I am satisfied in my mind that all the professors are only looking at sexuality in terms of gayism, and that they have not really looked at what bisexual means, transgender means, queer means, questioning means, intersex means, asexual, aromantic, pansexual, non-binary, genderqueer, agender, stud, mahu, muse.
Well, Your Excellency, are they not, Your Excellency, I mean, with all these groups that you've given, are these learned people not actually putting all of them in one basket and saying that they all have human rights?
In my view, they are only relegating everything to the fact that this is act and that it takes place in private. That is why I have a problem with them.
You're not saying it from a human rights point of view as they are talking about it?
What human rights are we talking about? We are talking about cultural practices. These are things that people have brought about in their own countries, and they are fighting with it. I just come back from Canada. People are against some of the things they are doing. That children are born now, and you don't know which gender to give to them. The child is not a male, and you want to leave out the gender portion and wait until that person grows up or becomes a questioning person who is questioning a gender or his gender. I mean, those are things that they should also look at. I don't think they are looking at it. We all agree that sex is a private matter between two consenting adults and it can take place anywhere. All these other things that are added ons, all the added ons are what this bill is talking about. And I don't think they have given any attention to it. Have they really done that? Have they? I'm born a man. They say I'm transgender. I feel like I'm a woman. I mean, is that not something wrong with that person who is thinking that way? And the professor is saying we don't have to look at that. All these other definitions I've given, I think that is what the bill is aimed at, because already we have all agreed that we have Section 104, which deals with homosexuality. It is already there. We also have the offenses against what you call having sex with children and the rest underage, whether with a consent or without a consent and all that. We know that. So how are we treating those people who have this added on? Not only that, as for me, I want to be a homosexual also. Then a marriage, is it not even affecting a marriage? That now a man wants to marry a man, a woman wants to marry a woman, and then go ahead to do adoption. We want to adopt, we want to have children, knowing very well that the union they have entered into cannot produce children.
Your Excellency, just back to my question. I mean, how this should be handled. I mean, both sides obviously have got the right to put in these memorandum and other things as requested by the law and also requested by Parliament. But moving forward, when everything is said and done, how should Parliament handle this and listen to both sides and come up with something that's...
Well, if Parliament concentrates on those other aspects that have hammered upon, Parliament should pass it. We are not ready for it now. Parliament should pass it, because all the other things that are coming in is more like a mental problem. I mean, in abroad, people go, in America, people go and shoot others, and they say, oh, they are having mental problems. They try to find excuses for it. Why can't we also find an excuse for some of these things that are happening and say that those people also need treatment? But we are saying they have a fundamental right to do whatever they like. Your right to freedom of thought and conscience, that means that you can do just anything you wish to do. We can't afford that. They should stop making the argument about two consenting adults having sex in private. We are all aware of that. That is not only the issue. All the other definitions, where are they coming from? Prof admits that before in 1960, we did not know these things. When did they come about? When did they come about?
Okay. Your Excellency, just my final question to you, then I can move back to my guest here. You talked about Parliament going into details to pass it, because if they go into details, they'll understand exactly what this bill is all about. What response do you have for the majority chief whip in Parliament that's put on social media, on Twitter to be specific, and I quote, "It's unfortunate the LGBT bill is being politicized. As the majority caucus in Parliament, we agree in principle that legislation that protects Ghanaians' values in all areas of life must be supported. However, the bill, as it is now, is defective."
I'm surprised at that, because it's not gone to the consideration stage yet. It is at that stage that they want to consider everything, and then if in their view it goes against the fundamental human rights of anybody, that can be looked at. Because I have said, I've read the memorandum, and they looked at all those issues as to whether some of the things they are talking about infringe the fundamental human rights, and they found other examples like this political thing, that vigilantism and the rest, and terrorism and cyber crimes, they get various examples which shows that these rights are not absolute, and that they could always be limited in the public interest and for the public good and, morality and all that. So, to me, they should wait until they get to the consideration stage and take it line by line, and then they should be able to tell us why they think that it should not pass.
Okay.
But my point is that we should stop limiting the whole argument to sex.
Okay.
And let's talk about the mental issues, about the other things that those people are talking about.
All right. Let me move back to you in the studio as we get ready to wrap up. Same question I asked His Excellency. I mean, how Parliament is really going to handle this particular issue. You are also a member of Parliament.
We're going to do it as we deal with all bills. At the end of the day, we're going to go for the committee is going to sit, and Prof made reference to the chairman of the committee. He's one member of an 18-member committee. His view is his entirely. He's entitled to it, and that will be respected. However, the report of the committee will be the report of the majority members on the committee. When I say majority, not a political side, then the majority view of the 18 members of that committee. So Honorable Ayimedu is entitled to hold opinion, and he's rightly stated that even though I disagree, and many members of his committee disagree with his interpretation of 108, because you see, Prof makes the point that the policing functions. We're not going to employ new policemen because of this bill. The police is already paid a salary to enforce the laws of the land that deal with criminal offenses. Okay, so it is not a new charge on the consolidated fund. Again, when you say so that argument of the police is neither here nor there. About prisons, again, you're asking yourself, the state is always going to run prisons. It's always, and we're going to have people leaving the prisons and new people going in there and the feeding. Don't forget, it's not only the state that builds prisons. Recently, the Church of Pentecost built a prison and helped the state. And help the state. You get it? And help the state with it. Now, so when they say, because if just a last point on the 108, just a last point on 108, if we want to make that argument that, oh, so long as there is a setting charge, that's the object of the bill, impose a cost on the state. No, because any bill, any private member's bill, before the president assents to it, will be referred to the Attorney General for his advice to the state. The Attorney General is going to use resources which belong to the state. His advice is going to be on paper, printed by the state. Even if it's an electronic version, the data will be paid for by the state. So you can, if you want to bring that version, and I'm happy Prof says she is one person who supports private members' bill, because there are two views to 108. One which says that private members' bills can never even start at all, because whichever way you go, there's going to be an attachment to the state. Or is the object imposing a new cost line? I take it from her position that she supports the second view that says if it is not imposing a new cost line, then you can have private members' bill. And I'm saying to her that this bill doesn't impose a new cost line. Again, citing the EU Court of Justice.
The Constitution.
Citing the EU Court of Justice.
Quickly,
yes, citing the EU Court of Justice is not a support for foreign things. The whole concept of LGBTQ rights is a foreign construct. Yes. She spoke up. She said she turns 70 next year.
She's turning 70.
Yes, grateful to God for the gift of long life for her. But when she was growing up, the Kojo Beziers and things you knew never came together in the community to tell you to recognize their rights.
If somebody sets up a center, have they told you to come there?
That's a recognition.
No, but when you set up an advocacy office, you set up an advocacy office. What is that office supposed to do? What is it going to advocate for? It is set up by an agency called LGBTQ Plus Rights Ghana.
Would you allow them a leisure center?
Well, they have no. We would not. The same way we would not. The same way we would not allow a recreational center for prostitutes. And I'm answering. The same way we wouldn't allow a recreational center for prostitutes or a gym for armed robbers.
Prostitution
is the same way we won't allow a recreational center for persons. So the point I'm making to Prof, yes, which you should appreciate, is the fact that this is in direct response. You make reference to the World Council of Families. I mean, there's all kinds of
Congress.
Well, thank you for correcting. I don't even know them, but you
find out about them.
The point is there are also those who believe that the academia is being sponsored by pro-LGBTQ people. So it's all perception. The same way you may perceive that we are being sponsored by a certain congress of families or whatever. Like I keep saying, if there is such a congress, I am willing for them, if they have funded, to bring it. We'll come to GBC, receive it on GBC, and do a proper accounting of how we use the funds for public education. I will run away from it because we have wasting money supporting the position. I'm not saying that that's what is supporting academia, but the position academia has taken.
You have evidence?
There are persons.
So he said he's not saying that.
I am not saying.
He said he's not saying that. So
Prof, please listen to me.
He said he's not saying that. So
I'm saying that. I'm saying that.
Wrap up for me, right?
I am not saying that the academia, the 18 of you, are supported by Western money, but I'm saying that there is evidence of Western money supporting persons of like mind who have been advocating. Okay. So it is all perception. But the last thing I will say is, Prof made a very telling statement. She said people die from malaria.
Yes.
And she made that point. She said one of my colleague MPs took her on that. Prof, that's the more reason why you must join us to fight against this canker. Because, Prof, the problems and medical challenges from the activities of homosexuality far outweigh malaria.
Dr. Sam
They far outweigh malaria. So if you agree
yes.
that we even have challenges with malaria,
yes,
because of your grandchildren, because of my children, let us not import further medical challenges that would even worsen our precarious medical situation today.
Thank you very much.
Stop being emotive. Okay?
I'm not being emotive. I'm being factual.
I'm using it to get to an important point.
Okay. I'm being factual
about why some of us are supporting this bill. Okay, you may be too young, but if you know the people who are in this coalition and what they have done in this country, some of the facile statements that have been made will not be made.
When the Achimota Rasta issue happened,
go and ask,
love to hear
go and ask the parents.
You know, I'd love to hear them speak because of the rights of these young boys.
Sam. So you will not lecture me on my activism. Go and ask the parents and go and find out what happened on the Wesley Girls platform when the Muslim students were going on. We don't need any lessons from anybody.
No.
You didn't
speak nationally like you're doing here.
No.
You said you didn't.
I want to insist that the Constitution, not any aspect of Ghanaian culture, is the supreme law of the land and the measuring rod against which any bill must first be evaluated. Okay, so when we go to Parliament, however valuable Ghanaian culture is, Parliament does not swear fidelity to that. It swears fidelity to the Constitution. So we are saying that Ghanaian cultural norms, no matter how widely shared, are themselves subject to the Constitution. That's why the Constitution can vitiate a cultural practice because it goes against the Constitution. Okay. When Mr. Honorable Ayikwe Otu was speaking, this is what I was talking about, this cultural war. So he kept referring to what is happening in Canada, and therefore, if we don't know, this is what is going to happen. You know. So and this thing about Western aid, the Ghanaian state subsists on Western money, on money from abroad. So we are only using the argument because it's being used against all these Western things. We depend on so many Western things. All the V8s and things that you drive, they are coming from all of these things. So for me, it's the selectivity. Even the EU Court of Justice, the EU Court of, yes, it's the selectivity. When something suits your purpose, then you will bring it out. If it doesn't, then, so by all means, we are saying that the bill as presented is not worthy, okay? That we have laws, the Criminal Offences Act, all of those things. Let us go back and look at those laws. If they are deficient, let us tighten them. If there's ambiguity, let's deal with them. Every day we are hearing about abuse of children. We are very concerned about children. The vast majority of that abuse is being perpetrated by heterosexual people. And yet in the bill, there's a lot of innuendo, again without evidence, about what gay people do in relation to children.
This whole thing is unfolding. So, I mean, there's going to be enough time and more time for us to talk about this, especially when it moves to Parliament. Maybe, Ross and George, we can look at the Hungary experience. You know, Hungary, they passed a law.
Oh, that is another one of the right-wing places. Yes, go and find out about Hungary.
But there was no, just hold on. But there was something significant.
Marriage. We are not advocating for same-sex marriage.
Prof, for the Hungary experience, there was something significant they did in the country to even have that law.
You want us to have a referendum?
Well,
it would be overwhelming.
Well, there was something significant they did in Hungary. Let me just quickly move to His Excellency. Your final word, a minute, then we can wrap up. Your final word.
Majority is not always right, you know?
Oh, well, you see, why you elevate, these things into human rights issues, then it changes the color of the argument. I remember earlier on when this whole idea started this argument started in South Africa, the point was made that they spoke in their definition of discrimination about sexual orientation. Unfortunately, in our section, Article 17, we have gender. We don't have any sexual orientation there. Recently, we've now started having this whole idea of the thing becoming a human rights issue. And that is why there is a sharp divide between those who think that people have a human right that ought to be respected, as against those who think that it's just some defect that must have to be corrected, and it's against our cultural practices. So the argument has changed because now people are talking about human rights, and like if you are not supporting somebody's human rights, then you are like a conservative.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it here. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm George. Thank you very much.
Prof, political, scientific.
For your time. It's been great having you around. And this particular program will be repeated this evening at 11 p.m. after a major news bulletin on GTV. So in case you missed some part of it, or some people did miss it, you can just watch it again this evening at 11 p.m. Focus will continue same time next week at 9. My name is George Donusafo. I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.